Welcome to Discourse episode 10. You know what? There wouldn't have been a Discourse today because I totally forgot to bring in Craig, but thanking my incredible group of people right here, my wonderful subscribers and wonderful friends. Thank you so much for reminding me. Totally fucking forgot. But this is Discourse episode 10. Been doing this for at least 10 weeks. Skipped a couple of weeks maybe, but overall, we've been doing this for close to 12 weeks probably, most likely. And we are talking about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, a beloved animated film which came out in 2018. A movie that I have to admit I was very skeptical of initially before it was released. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of Sony as a production company. I think their output is mixed, to say the least. And it's like, yes, I know Phil Lord and Chris Miller are involved. Like, they're producing. I think what Miller has a screenwriting credit on this movie. But when I typically think of a lot of Sony animated films, I think of the Emoji Movie. So their output, again, not the best. And their output of Spider-Man films is not the best, except, when they're teamed up with Marvel proper, Disney proper. Then I was like, yeah, I've been enjoying that output very much so, especially with the Holland films, whether it be Homecoming or Civil War. I don't know if I guess Far From Home had already come out. It was just about to come out. Maybe it was like
about to
come
out. Yeah,
about to come out. Thank you. So I was like, I like that, but this other animated Spider-Man, I'm not sure. Even seeing those trailers, like, yeah, it looks cool and everything, but again, it was weird. You're going to be doing a Spider-Man animated movie, which is like, that sounds cool, theatrical release, and it's going to cherry pick all these different Spider-Mans from the different comics and just mush them together. I was like, that's a lot. That's a lot to juggle. And so I was initially extremely skeptical. And I feel like some other people's were. Of course, we had people who were excited. Just the animation looked gorgeous, no doubt about it. The animation style, which I think we started to become more accustomed to. We started to see it pop up in other Sony films like The Mitchells vs. the Machines and most recently Arcane, which I highly encourage you guys to check out. That episode we just did, that was Discourse episode 9. But even the animation style was very different, like a combination of 3D and 2D, and it was weird, but it looked beautiful. So I was like, okay, all right, at least it's gonna look pretty. But then I saw the film like everyone else did, like a lot of people did, and I fell in love with it. The animation was gorgeous. The script was hilarious and heartfelt. Has some of the best Spider-Man moments I think we've seen on screen so far, and the characters were given so much depth and humor, and even the villains, who were of course very nefarious and they did horrible things, they gave them a lot of depth, and you even sympathized them or empathized them with at times, and it makes you excited for the possibilities with a sequel, which it's coming out very soon. This is not to date this particular episode, but we just saw the release of a scene from Spider-Man Enter the Spider-Verse, I believe it's called. Are you getting that? Part 1 of 2, and an eventual spin-off film that we're getting as well, which you don't know too many details about, but I'm excited for. But yeah, I love this movie. It's not my favorite Spider-Man film. My personal favorite is still Homecoming, but this is a very close second. I totally understand why a lot of people pick this as their absolute favorite Spider-Man movie, and of course it won a ton of accolades. Critical response is very positive. It also did very well commercially. Won the Oscar for Best Animated Film back in 2018, and it deserved it. It's a fantastic film. But I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to you guys. Hear what your thoughts of this movie. What were your expectations initially when you first, not even before you even saw this film? What did you think of it? And then when you finally did see it, what was your opinion then? So we'll go ahead and start at the top. We'll start with Deadpool. Your initial expectations, and then your general thoughts on the movie itself.
Well, I mean, I didn't know that Sony was making animated Spider movie until I saw the trailer. So because I would have been been very hesitant if I heard about it. But when I saw the trailer, I'm like, this looks different. This actually looks really good. So I'm like, okay, I went into pretty optimistic about it, and when I saw it, it was fantastic. Like, I mean, it really pushes the envelope on animated movies, let alone animated superhero movies. Because before that, you really didn't have that many animated superhero movies. They were usually just kind of more like the direct to DVD stuff that DC tends to do. True. So it was refreshing to seeing that, like, not only an animated superhero movie, but seeing it on like theatrical level with money behind it.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned the DC stuff because, I mean, yeah, that's when we typically thought of animated superhero films. We tend to just instantly think of DC or Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, which I think was the last time DC had released an animated film, and that was famous. Yes, critically beloved, but commercially was a failure, and so they all relegated these to straight to VOD or streaming or something. Still producing a number of great ones, but yeah, and when you barely even think of Marvel. Because like yes, they did make some straight to DVD animated movies, like several Avengers films. I think they were based on the Ultimate Run. I think Doctor Strange. I think maybe it was an Iron Man. But other than that, yeah, few and far between. So this was very unusual. I guess you can kind of say Big Hero 6 was an adaptation of a property. Well, I'm talking specifically about like adaptations of well-known characters.
Oh, right.
Where Incredibles, yeah, I mean that's very much Fantastic Four. I mean Brad Bird took liberally from that, but yeah, so it's kind of it is a bit of an exception. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Was Batman Samurai released in theaters?
I have no idea, but not that.
Killing Joke was like very limitedly though.
Yeah, that's limited release. I'm thinking like super wide release theatrical. Like that was Phantasm. 20 years ago, nearly 20 years ago at this point. And I guess you have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So I wonder if it's going to start a trend. That'll be very interesting. I mean, obviously, it's going to get sequels, of course, but then other comic book characters, are they going to make the crossover into theatrical animated movies? I'm very curious about that. So it's a good point to beat up Deadpool. And yeah, I totally understand why you feel the way you do about the movie. But moving on from Deadpool, Osnick, what were your expectations going to see this film? And then your general thoughts after seeing it.
Okay, so I was a bit hesitant, kind of similar to you. I remember hearing, and I love, Chris Lord and Phil Miller, or reverse that, Phil Lord and Chris Miller.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller.
Even though I think only one of them wrote this. I think it's just Phil Lord wrote this.
He has I'm actually glad you brought that up because let's give some credit to the other people that made this movie, because everyone just says, oh yeah, Phil Lord and Chris Miller's Spider-Man movie. It's like, yes, you're right. Phil Lord, he co-wrote it along with Rodney Rothman. So let's give that man some respect. But it's a total Tim Burton Nightmare Before Christmas situation. It was like, oh yeah, Tim Burton directed that, even though it was Henry Selick. So let me go ahead and I'm going to go right back to you, Osnick. I want to give respect to Bob Persichetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rothman, who also co-wrote along with Phil Lord. They are the directors of this movie. They deserve a lot of the credit for this film, and I don't feel like they get any at all. I think, it's like, who are those guys who stepped out when they got the Oscar for Best Animated Film? Who's those guys with Phil Lord and Chris Miller? So give them a lot of credit. But go ahead, continue, Osnick.
Yeah, just to go back to what you're saying, I think Sony Animation has very hit and miss movies. They had the first Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which was a Chris Lord and Phil Miller, which they made, and then they had the second one, which I think they didn't direct. I don't think they directed. They also did the Lego movie, which was Sony, right? Or Sony or Warner Brothers?
It was Warner Brothers.
Oh, it was Warner. Okay, but anyway,
they were involved in that.
Yeah. Anyway, they were kind of known for doing good animated movies, so I felt like, okay, they're in good hands. I think this will be a good movie, and then I'm like, well, it's going to be about Miles, who. And sort of like some level it looked like it was based on like the Ultimate Spider-Man and take on the character, where I think for people who don't know, Brian Michael kills Ultimate Spider-Man and then introduces Miles to kind of be his replacement, which was upset a lot of people for being a character of color, but also just felt like something very, like a cheesy, like when they killed Superman, and just to give him new versions. So I thought it was an interesting take, and I think everyone for years really wanted Donald Glover to play Spider-Man as Miles, even though he was like 30 by the time by the time this movie happened, and by the time like people actually wanted to do it. But when I actually saw the movie, and I'm like, the first second when Spider-Man's doing the Spider-Man, I'm like, okay, this is going to be an amazing movie. Like, all kind of my fears were wiped away, all my, like, concerns, and I really enjoyed it, and I really think it's a hard movie for me to look at because I think it's so good. I'm like, what? It's so good, it's hard to say, it's hard to, like, put into actual words what is so good about it.
Yeah, it's multifaceted
Mhm.
of all the things I think makes it work. Yeah, I have few criticisms of. I think I have maybe one criticism. We can go into that later. But I'm actually glad you brought up the Donald Glover thing because initially, what happened was this is right before they were about to do the Mark Webb Spider-Man films, and one of the names I think they threw out there at the time was Donald Glover, or there was not even like Sony did it, but I think it was fan casting. I think fans were like, we would love to see Donald Glover, who of course was already making a name for himself, being a writing on 30 Rock, and I think Community was already in full swing, and like he's nerdy, he could be Spider-Man. And he's like, yeah, I'll happily, I'd love to play the character. That'd be great. I think he this is even like a comedy bit. Some of his stand up you can actually find. I think it's on his special Weirdo. It was called. And he talked about that, but then how he remembers the fan community or social media reacting and going, "He's black. He's a black man. He can't be Spider-Man." And it was that. That was one of the big inspiration points for Brian Michael Bendis to create the character of Miles Morales. It's like, why can't Spider-Man be black? Why not? And so he created a whole new character. Because initially people were talking about casting Donald Glover as Peter Parker. And he said, well, I'm just going to go ahead and make my own black Spider-Man, black Latino Spider-Man, that is. People often forget that Miles is also Puerto Rican. And that was kind of the inciting incident that birthed this character. And you're right, it was controversial at the time when it came out, like when they killed Peter Parker, and then you had this new Spider-Man come about. But it's funny to see, like because Miles is not that. The character hasn't been around for that long. It's about a decade, I want to say, maybe slightly over a decade at this point. And to see that he's already crossed over into movies and his supporting characters have also crossed over it's really amazing. And so I've been loving that. So I'm glad you brought that up. His comic book origins, which were initially controversial, but now people go, Miles is all right. And he's got his own video game too. So yeah, it's pretty incredible. So good points, very good points. Chris Ayers, well, yourself, good. So your expectations going in and your general thoughts after seeing the movie.
My expectations going in were that I'd seen the trailers. Like, I'd heard that they were going to be doing an animated Spider-Man movie with Lord and Miller involved years before it came out, like 2015, I want to say, around the same time they announced that Spider-Man was coming to the MCU. And I thought, okay, maybe this would be cool, but this is probably one of those projects that's just not going to happen. And then I forgot about it, and then I started seeing trailers. It's like, oh shit, they're actually going to do this. So I went in optimistic, knowing that not only they were involved, but a couple of the directors. I'm looking at their names right now. I don't know what Bob Persichetti had done before, but I knew that Peter Ramsey had done Rise of the Guardians, the DreamWorks movie with all the
I like that movie.
yeah, with all with Santa and the Easter Bunny and all those characters. And then Rodney Rothman had already worked with Lord and Miller before as a writer on 22 Jump Street. So it's like, all right, it's a good team. I really liked a lot of the casting, especially Jake Johnson as like older Peter Parker. So I went in excited, and I had an interesting experience because when I went to college, they had this thing where sometimes they would hold early screenings for upcoming movies in like a screening room on the top floor of the building, and a bunch of students could come in there for free. And this was one of them. So I got to see it 2 weeks early before anyone else. I don't think any reviews had come out yet. I don't think anybody else had seen it. I think we were among the first. And the energy in that room watching it for the first time together was electric. We all walked out of there going like, this is so fucking good. Like, we knew that we were watching something special, and we were like, we can't wait for this movie to come out officially. One, because we want to go see it again, which I did, and two, we want to see it. Like, we want to spread the love. We want to show this to as many people as we possibly can and tell them like, dude, you've got to go see this. It's really a big one. And yeah, to see the response to it and just how expansive it's been, and just this movie's fucking great. I don't know what else to say, really.
Nice. No, that's cool. No, that's cool that you got to see it earlier and you already knew how big this movie was going to be or how it was going to be embraced by people. So that's awesome. That's really cool. Doug and Harry, Stefan, how about you, good sir? How your initial expectations and your general thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, so around this time, the Spider-Man video game had just come out, and it was a year after the Spider-Man Homecoming movie, and at the time, I feel like it was kind of a reinvestment into Spider-Man for me, a year of reinvestment
Mm-hmm.
because Amazing Spider-Man, that universe had just turned me off so much. Not to where I didn't love Spider-Man anymore, but I, much like a lot of people were with Batman, needed a break.
Yeah.
But just at the time, I was already in love with Spider-Man, and I was ready to, jump into this, and it didn't disappoint. I mean, from beginning to end, the movie just balances the humor of Spider-Man and the heart and the depth. Even something as simple as the post-credit scene, just funny
Sure.
to be able to handle like something just that Hollywood fails at so often.
Mm.
Both the post-credit scene and just viral phenomenons, like it's such a small thing, but it shows how much love and heart went into this movie.
It pays honor to a lot of aspects of Spider-Man, whether it be for the comics or various other adaptations. I mean, the opening is almost paying homage to Raimi's era of
Yeah,
Spider-Man films. And you're right, like the very end, because anytime Hollywood tries to do, and sometimes they nail it, but most of the time they don't, where things that have gone viral or pop cultural zeitgeist moments that happen, and it's like, we're still seeing things about Tide Pods. It's like, what are you doing? It's like,
yeah,
that was so many years ago. But thankfully, memes live forever, and the Spider-Man meme is such a wonderful thing that continues to exist, and how they honored that was so much fun to absolutely see, and to see that it's all connecting, including the original '60s cartoons. So yeah, great to bring up the fact that it respects both traditional Spider-Man stuff, but also things that fans have even created, and meme culture has cultivated and created and posted. But thank you for saying all that. Thunder Lee, how about yourself, good sir? Your initial expectations and your general thoughts after seeing the movie.
So I didn't get to see the movie until kind of almost a year after it came out.
what?
Yeah. So because at that time I was just getting into college, so a lot of things flew over my head.
Get it.
as I
Busy,
was
super
being-
busy.
Yeah. So I after one of my classes in college, I walked to the local Best Buy near the college, and I see Into the Spider-Verse in 4K. So I'm like, let me get this. This is like 6 months after, at the time, Blu-rays and stuff come 6 months after.
Mhm.
Now unlike now where it's like 3 months. But I watched it that night, and before that point, the only thing of Into the Spider-Verse that I knew was the Post Malone song, Sunflower,
That's
which
right.
I absolutely love. That song
Mhm.
is amazing, and how frequent they use that in the movie is also cool too. But just watching like from the animations of like the when it comes to terms of FPS, the frame rate and stuff, and then how like the characters grow more and stuff. The story is amazing. I love the animation of it, and that was one of the moments where it's like, this is like, if I would have paid like $100 for a collector's edition of just this movie, I would have, because it's one of those like movies where you get inspired to like make something similar to that. And also when it comes to Miles Morales, it just fueled my love for Miles Morales as a character. Like, he is, like, I don't care what other people say, oh, he's black, he's taking over Peter Parker. Listen, that's my Spider-Man as a Latino, like as a Puerto Rican, like that. He is my favorite Spider-Man out of all of them.
No, it's amazing to see just the cultural impact, and the fan impact that Miles has had on people, and in such a short amount of time. That's why he really stands out there, where he's only been around for maybe just over 10 years, and he's popping up in everything. But people are really like, yeah, you had those racists who are like, I don't like that black kid who's Spider-Man. But then you have all these other people who have seen him across all these different mediums and properties, and transitioning over, whether it be video games or movies, or just really falling in love with this character and his supporting characters. Like, they're great too. Very inspired to make, and we'll talk about it later, but for example, the Prowler, his uncle. So already kind of connecting him to a longtime Spider-Man enemy and ally. And I was like, oh, they're related. I like that. It's a nice little connection right there. So it's both the new and the old, and making them both work at the same time. So that's nice. But yeah, man, no, I totally agree with you. I think for a lot of people, this was their first exposure to Miles Morales, even before they played the video game. And they're like, oh shit, okay, I like this kid. So great things to bring up. Cass, about yourself, your initial expectations and your general thoughts on the movie itself after you saw it.
Well, I'm one of the few people who actually just got around to seeing it recently, like just this past
Cool.
week. So, I've already heard a lot of hype about it and everything, and it did live up. I really loved this movie, and
Mhm.
going into it, I've always found it refreshing that this does something a little bit different with the whole Spider-Man franchise. Because when it first came out, and it came out after Homecoming and everything, I was kind of rolling my eyes at any talk of a Spider-Man adaptation because I'm like, come on, give it a rest already. It doesn't even feel like to me much time has passed since the Tobey Maguire one, even though it has. But I just it was nice to see something that looked like it was gonna kind of poke fun at everything, something that had a bit more self-awareness and it pushes the limits of storytelling a bit. And this movie, I love how it's formulaic in some places to where it still retains that fun kind of energy that Spider-Man adaptations have, but there's also depth to the storytelling and there are still stakes there, and it's still something different than what you've seen in other Spider-Man movies.
It's a good point bringing up how you initially were a little concerned about, look, like, we're doing another Spider-Man film, and is it going to be possibly reinterpreting the origin again? Like, there's that fear. There's that fear, and I love it. I love how they make fun of that throughout the entire movie, where it opens up with Chris Pine as the ultimate Spider-Man, as the he's the golden boy that figured everything out. It's like, I love being Spider-Man, and I'm rich. I got all this money. I got a spider bat cave. It's great. And he's like, all right, guys, one more time. I'll do the origin one more time. I know, because we always do this and shit. We always rebooting and things. And then they repeat that gag in the movie over and over and over again, and it keeps getting funnier. And to me, it's almost like, yeah, we know that we've seen this origin so many times, and it's gotten so old and annoying. But I love how they put their own comedic spin on it. And you're right, it definitely pokes fun at itself. It has to. The genre needs to. We need a Deadpool every once in a while to go like, hey, we know this is silly, know this is goofy, but we still love the same time. But we're gonna make fun of it. We're gonna take the piss out of it. And I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse also does. It is incredibly reverent and respectful of the property, but it also knows we have to make fun of this shit. It's like, there's Uncle Ben, and there we go. He dies again. So we didn't shoot him. He just goes off into the light or whatever. So, yeah, I'm right there with you. That was also one of my other concerns, where it's like, I don't fucking want to see another origin again. But thankfully, it was so fresh. It was formulaic to a degree. You're right, but it still introduced all these new ideas. So great points to bring up. Excellent points. And Xavier, about yourself, your initial expectations going in, and your general thoughts after seeing it.
So I don't remember my expectations for it. I mean, I just expected. I mean, I was interested by the trailer and by the animation, so I knew that something that I definitely wanted to go see. After seeing it, because I saw it in theaters, and after seeing it in theaters, I thought, oh, it's a good movie, and I really liked it. But after just rewatching it today, I was like, wow, this movie really is. Like, now I understand when people say, like, this is my favorite Spider-Man movie. I now understand it because it's just like what everyone's been saying. It's different. Like, just in the first, 30 minutes, like half an hour, they get it out the way, and they're like, this is Spider-Man. Like, this is the, you're happy, you got Peter Parker, there you go. And then right after that, they're like, okay, here's Miles, and they introduce it, he's black, and then they have his Puerto Rican mother, and how he's speaking, like, he's bilingual, he's speaking English and he's speaking Spanish. And then also within that time frame, they play Hypnotized by Biggie, and so it just feels different, it feels fun, and yeah, I just love everything about it. And of course, it's drawn in by the animation, but I think even if you take the animation out of it, say it was, I don't know, live action or just standard, quote unquote standard animation, it would still be a good movie. I would still love it because I just love the story, um for this movie, and I'll probably go out on a limb and say that I think that within I know what's happening now, but I would say that within like maybe 10, maybe 20 years, that people are going to be like, this is the mainstream Spider-Man. Like everyone's, obviously we're still have Peter Parker, but I think at some point Miles will be the one that everyone's like, this is my Spider-Man, and on a greater level where more people are saying it, and maybe everyone's saying it. I don't know, but yeah, absolutely love this movie. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. No, well, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, a lot for look. I think even Thunder Lee said earlier, like this is his Spider-Man, and I think for a lot of people, Miles is their Spider-Man. Like Peter Parker, like I'll always love Peter, but he's been around for over 60 years now. And so, and this is this thing I bring up like during whether we do this or during my streams or my Patreon content or YouTube or whatever. And I said like comics so often just go back to the status quo because they're like, well, we can't make too many changes because we have to make it as mainstream and familiar for everyone as possible. So, yeah, we'll do a story where this person gets married or this person has children, but then there's some fucking crisis event or some time travel mumbo jumbo or a spell that goes off and it sets everything back to normal. And it's like, fuck, can we just move on to something new? And so I am not opposed to that. Like, maybe eventually we can get to a period where Peter Parker is retired, where it is now Miles is the new Spider-Man for however long. I know because they do that whole thing. They're both named Spider-Man, which is weird. It's like, which one are you talking? I'm sure that's confusing in like the Marvel comics. Wait, which Spider-Man are you talking about? But I think that's cool. I wouldn't mind that. I'm the guy that says wouldn't mind if Dick Grayson became Batman and Bruce, he retired. He sailed off in the sunset with Catwoman and then got married and you bring him back every once in a while, but just something new. But comics so often feel like they have to go back to status quo. So maybe Miles is that champion. Maybe he's going to be that example where it's like, no, we can move on from the old stuff and we'll always honor the old stuff and still do things with that. But for the future, let's delve into this character. So I don't think that's controversial what you're saying, and I think Miles is that character that really has just incredible appeal across the board. Not even if don't even have to be either black or Latino to love the character. I think we're just seeing that across all different cultures and races and things, which I think is awesome. He's a really cool character and definitely I think one of Marvel's best, along with Kamala Khan in my opinion. One of the best new creations they've had in the last decade or so. So great points to bring up. Newsy Ducky, any thoughts? Your general thoughts on the movie? I mean, what were your expectations beforehand?
Well, I had no expectation to be honest. I just watched it this week, Monday actually.
Cool.
And I didn't watch any trailer at all. It's just, I just wanted to get into it head first and see what's inside it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and well, actually, I have a love-hate relationship with Spider-Man because, well, I used to enjoy the first trilogy with Tobey Maguire, but well, because I had to make a 50-page thesis on Spider-Man during my last year.
Oh, wow.
Of my college student, as a college student, and so I mean, after watching it at least 5 times, I just didn't do that anymore. I just I got tired of it, I guess, and yeah, it's they actually made it a running gag on his origin story, like how he was bitten by the spider and all that, but I actually like it. I like the movie as it is. It's a nice kind of like a love letter to Stan Lee because I think that was the year he died when it came out, but I'm not sure. I believe so.
I think you're right. And that was and his because he always loves his cameos. That was the cameo because I think it happened like very close to each other, and that was the most recent cameo he did like after he died. I think I think that's what happened. So you're right.
Yeah. I mean, I like the movie as it is. It actually just kind of lightly touches the history of Spider-Man from the comics all the way to the movies. I actually like the way that they show like different different types of the comics from like the 1930s till the 90s, I guess. And yeah, I just liked how the the character evolved from this one-dimensional thing to how we know him now. And yeah, I also love how the spider people bonded, and how they had this one main goal, but the reasons on why they want to get to that goal was kind of it was different, it was varied. They all lost different people that are close to their lives or close to their hearts, and they just wanted to do that for that person, either if it's Uncle Ben or Aunt May or Uncle Aaron, whoever it is they lost. And yeah, I actually love that. And yeah, I mean, I don't really have like a close bond with Spider-Man, to be honest.
Yeah, you're
Again,
sick of him.
I got so sick and tired of watching Spider-Man at least 5 times when I was in college, and yeah. So I mean, I still love it though. So yeah.
A movie's so good that even though you hate the character, you have to admit, movie's still entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really hate the character.
I'm joking.
I don't really connect to it because he's a teenage boy, and I don't know anything about teenage boys.
That's fair. That's fair. That's good. You know, I actually, very cool point you brought up, the fact that we got to see different iterations of Spider-Man. Because, yeah, I mean, we're focusing on Miles, we're focusing on Peter Parker, but we do see, and I want to get into this more as we continue with the topic, but we do see Spider-Noir. We see Penny Parker, an anime Spider-Man. We see Peter Porker, which is like, it's hard to translate those characters over to live action. You know, especially something like Peter Porker, though, who knows, they might try to do that now. But like animation, you're allowed to get away with that kind of stuff. You can have a lot more fun. You could be over-exaggerated.
Is that what his name, Peter Porker? Because I keep calling him Spider Pig because of that song.
Yeah, no, you're right. He is Spider Pig, but his alter ego is Peter Porker. Like, that's his secret identity, is Peter Porker.
Spider Ham.
Spider Ham. Oh, Spider Ham. That's it. Spider Ham. You nailed it.
Yeah, Spider Pig is from The Simpsons.
That's The Simpsons. I keep confusing. God damn you, Spider Pig. Spider Pig does whatever a Spider Pig does. God damn it. I just let that suck in my head. You're right. It is Spider Ham. No. So yeah, that's awesome. And then Person Mans. Your expectations going into this movie, and what are your general thoughts after finally seeing it?
I didn't really know that they were doing this movie until I think I heard about it, but I didn't really get on my radar until after I saw Venom. I think it was Venom, right, where that was the trailer at the end.
Yep.
And after I saw that, I was with my dad, and I kind of knew from that teaser that it was going to be something special, just from the way it looked. And me and my dad go to everything like comic book related, and I forget who said it, but it is hard to really like talk about when something is like executed perfectly. It's hard to talk about what's so good about it.
Sure, no, I mean, it does everything, I think, extraordinarily, whether it be the animation or the writing or the characters or particular sequences. It excels across the board.
I thought it was great. I love how most movies, even if they're not that good, will win me over if they're sincere about themselves.
Sure.
And Into the Spider-Verse has some of the most heart of any movies that I've ever seen.
Yeah. No, I feel like that's why a lot of people are connected to it. It speaks to them, whether it be on a personal level or even a cultural level. And they see them like Spider-Man when he was originally created. Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, their idea was they want their readers to imagine themselves as this character, and he has the same problems that teenagers had during that time period. Because he's 15-year-old, he wasn't a sidekick, he wasn't a partner to another hero. He was by himself, and people identified with that. And we're seeing that again with Miles, which I think is really awesome. 60 plus years later, people still see themselves as Spider-Man, which makes him a very unique character. It's hard to see yourself as Batman, this rich billionaire who is able to get all those wonderful toys, or Superman, has godlike powers and an alien from another world. Maybe to an extent you could see yourself, but not, But Spider-Man, he has to save the day, but then he also has to pay his rent. He has to make sure to pay his electric bill. It's like, those are real problems. And he has to make sure to get on time for this date because he broke off the date, twice already. This one girl he likes. It's like, it's very real. And I think that's why it continues to translate so well across various mediums. And it speaks to so many people, whether male or female or any other race or culture, because we all go through those things. Those are the similar things we all experience. I think it makes Spider-Man this beloved and obviously long-lasting character. So yeah, great points to bring up. I know that at this point, I wanted to just check with everyone to see if they have any criticisms against the movie. If there's anything they didn't like. I'm walking on eggshells right now. I'll go ahead and start. I have one criticism against it, is that I think occasionally the backgrounds, they do tend to, it's not all the time, but like during crowd scenes especially. Like I noticed this as I was watching clips again, kind of like, okay, remind myself of certain scenes and the rapport between certain characters. And I noticed that oftentimes in the background, they'll make them super blurry. And then when every time you look, it was like, it kind of hurts my eyes, or it gives me a physical reaction. I'm like, oh shit, I can't look at that for too long. Then I'm going cross-eyed a little bit. So there were times where even though the animation is great, when it's in the foreground, it's like, oh, it looks beautiful, I love it. But some of the background stuff, especially when it's super pixelated, it's made to almost be like that little dots, like in comics, which I see what they were doing there. But sometimes it kind of took me out of it because it actually made my eyes feel weird. Did anyone else have something like that, or was there like do you have any like particular criticisms of the movie? I know we've been saying how much we love it, but I'm just curious.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it a criticism since I don't know yet what they're going to be doing with the sequel, and I'm sure they've been planning all this for a long time, but just the other Spider-Man variants and everything, I would have liked to see more with them, especially like I thought Spider-Noir was underused, but at the same time, I don't know what big plans they have for the future, and I still think the movie was so great altogether. It's just that with how fast-paced the whole plot was, in order to keep things moving, there was a lot of stuff that got glossed over, and it all just would have been a bonus anyway if we had gotten to see more of that, but it is what it is. No,
that's I think that's a valid criticism. When you get, because like Nicolas Cage is so good in the movie, but he's so over exaggerates. Maybe it was that kind of situation where it's like, well, we don't want to use him too much because maybe he can become annoying, but it's probably better to leave people wanting. But you're right. Like some of those, obviously Miles got a lot of depth, Gwen got a lot of depth, and Peter B. Parker got a lot of depth. He got a lot to do. Whereas the other ones, mostly maybe there for like humorous situations. But I think that's a valid criticism. Osik, I'm sorry, you're going to say something?
Yeah, I actually have one criticism that's sort of a bit weird. I don't like the version of the Goblin they have in this movie. I don't
get that.
I don't like the ultimate design for him. I don't like him when he's a big dragon monster. I like him when he's Willem Dafoe in a Power Ranger. Yeah, because I like him when he's kind of like smart. Spider-Man. Yeah, like that.
I'm right there with you, man. I've never been very partial to the Hulk Goblin, or whatever you want to call him, the mutant Goblin. Yeah, it's from the Ultimate Run, and I just like, I don't know, it's just so uninteresting to me. I love it that it's just this crazy industrialist who's literally in a goblin suit and a glider and cackling. There's something about that very much appeals to me. I like the classic version of the character, the Dafoe version of the character, as you said. I'm right there with you. Like, yeah, because that's the version we see in this universe at least. And they do with him, they do away with him. They kill him. They're like, all right, you're done, Norman. You're out of here. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I guess they just went with that design because they wanted like a really cool, like Spider-Man versus this giant monster action scene. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I've never been partial to the mutant abomination goblin design. Any other criticism for anyone else?
I think that one small thing that kind of bugged me was I think that they break the fourth wall too much. Because like one example I think of is like when when they say he has a comic book, and so Miles is like discovering his powers, and he sees a Spider-Man book, and it's like, wait, so do they know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man? Because it's like basically telling Spider-Man's origin story, and it's like, how
Yes.
do we know this story? So it didn't bother me too much. It didn't bother me too much, but it is something that I noticed where I'm like, wait, I'm not getting this.
You're no, you know, because I was rewatching the scene when Miles interacts with his uncle Aaron for the first time in the movie. It's right when he goes to his apartment and they hang out and it's like talking about the shoulder touch and stuff. And I noticed something weird in the background where it's the television and it's pixelated, but it's showing Spider-Man and it feels like it's like an infomercial, but Spider-Man check this out later on if you watch that scene again. It's Spider-Man swinging, he climbs through a window and he takes his mask off and he starts talking to the camera. And I'm thinking, do people just know who he is? I mean, this is supposed to be the best version of Spider-Man. He's blonde haired, he's blue eyed, he's he's got everything figured out, he's got money, he's in love with Mary Jane, he has a great relationship, he has a spider bat cave, and so maybe it's and everyone knows who he is and no one really cares. I wonder if it's that, but at the same time, he takes the mask off. The Kingpin takes his mask off later on, and Spider-Man says, "Oh, that's a big no-no." And so I don't know. That's a great question. There seem to be inconsistent with that. I guess the only thing I can say, yeah, go ahead, keep going.
Oh no, I was just gonna mention that scene that you're talking about. That's a callback to Donald Glover, because I think that scene that they're showing is from Donald. I don't know if it was a music video or what it was, but that he was dressed up in the Spider-Man suit.
Oh, that's what that. Oh, okay, all right, shit.
But
yeah.
it still doesn't. But you're right. But I still agree with you. It's kind of confusing.
It's confusing.
I'm looking at the clip right now, and that is not that is not the blonde Peter Parker. He has dark hair. Yeah, I think you're right. That is Donald Glover.
That is
okay.
There's actually a picture in the chat of the same thing if you scroll up.
Yeah, it's not that. Okay, I just saw that. I was like, oh shit, was that what it was? But that's a good thing to bring up. I think I think it might be just like, hey, it's a gag. Like they literally have the origin out there. Because this Spider-Man seems to be pretty open to get like ad money and sponsorships and stuff. I mean, he has his own Christmas CD available to people, made a record and stuff. So I don't know. Well, it's a good question. It's a good question though, because it's like, oh yeah, a little confusing. I suppose in the end, no one knows who he really is because Kingpin takes his mask off and he's like, that was a no. Don't do that. So I guess people just don't know. And it's revealed. Yeah, I guess in the movie, they also reveal Spider-Man was Peter Parker. So I guess, yeah, they didn't know. But you're right. The whole origin, the comic is just out there for people to grab and like, oh, this is my origin story. It's like, I guess he omitted certain details. So no, interesting thing to bring up. I didn't even think about that until you did. Any other criticisms or weird things might have had the movie?
No Toby. No, Tom.
You know what? I think recently. Well, I believe Tom Holland said like no one approached him for this movie, but then I think recently he was approached to be in the new ones. I think it was like an interview recently. He talked about possibly being in part 1 or part 2, but I guess it's when he was also making No Way Home. So we'll see what happens with that. I would not be surprised now if any 3 of them show up in the next films. I think it would make sense since they're obviously going to all be in the new movie, No Way Home. So I think that'll probably happen. You'll get cameos. If I was Sony, I'd be like, fuck yeah, we're going to put Tobey Maguire Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse. And the thing is, that'd be perfect because Tobey's nearly 50 now. He's in his 40s at this point. So you could easily have him then voice the character for many years later. If they wanted to. I mean, how about this idea? Do Spider-Man 4, except it's animated. Why not? At this point, it's the continuing adventures, but we might not be able to use him physically, but we can use his voice. People will see that movie. I would do that. I think that would be really unique. So who knows? It's a universe of possibilities, multiple universes. So you never know what's going to happen. Any other criticisms before we move on?
Well, I also noticed that I think some of the scenes where it's just kind of blurry, and I think this movie was perfect for like a 3D format. Because I watched it in a different platform, so I'm not sure if any of you were noticing that, but I noticed that there were some scenes that were just really blurry and kind of place.
Out of focus.
Yeah. So yeah.
It was, I mean, I hate 3D, and if you watch, it's like, should I have 3D glasses for this scene? So I could totally see that. I mean, for myself, I just wouldn't want to watch any movie in 3D, even if it's supposed to be like, no, it's supposed to be made for 3D. It's like, I don't give a shit. I don't want to watch it in 3D. So yeah, it might be the case. I want to, because I don't know if this was released to be in 3D, but if it was, I would be very curious to hear what people. No, I'm seeing it right now. I'm looking on Wikipedia and it says it was released in IMAX 3D and real Thrill D 3D. Has anyone seen that movie in 3D?
I think when I paid to see it in theaters the second time, I saw it in 3D. Yeah, and it did look really good.
Interesting. Okay. Well, there you go. At least have one person who did see it in 3D and they did like it. There you go. Cool. Well, keep going, guys. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I did see some parts that were like, there were objects where it seemed to be like red and blue and the image was almost coming apart, but I couldn't tell if that was meant to be some kind of artistic choice, like reality's bending or something.
Yeah, we do see like at times, like even the characters are becoming all pixelated and falling apart. But yeah, I wonder if it was just, they can use it as an excuse. It's like, oh yeah, reality was messing with that vase over on the mantle right over there. Not that, we just didn't bother animating it. That's a good point. Yeah. There's stuff in the background I feel like they're like, oh, we're not going to pay attention to that. We're going to just low resolution it until it almost hurts someone's eyes. So yeah, it's funny. Okay, we all kind of have like a similar criticism in a way. At least some of us do in regards to some of the background animation. So I'm glad I'm not the only one. Because people look at me like I'm crazy sometimes. I'm sorry. Did someone want to speak up?
I have it's not a criticism more than an observation. Do you think that the other three spiders are necessary to the story?
The other spider people?
Yeah. Besides,
like
Spider-Gwen.
Nicolas Cage and Peter Porker and Penny.
Yeah, I think they could be cut out, but I'm not saying I want that. But
they're
there, but they're not necessary.
It's like the other three I feel like are necessary. They have the most screen time. They have the most interactive miles. With the other three are definitely just they're there for comedy. They're there for comedy. At the same time, like their comedic scenes are really fun, and when they do interact with the main cast, I think they work. But you're right, they're not necessary, and that was I think that was one of the cast face points is that they didn't get like enough screen time or enough depth. But I never disliked them. I think that's the thing. It's like had I thought they were annoying, because someone like, okay, Peter Porker, come on, how are you gonna make that work? And they did. Had they been annoying, I would have been like, all right, get rid of them. But because I found them entertaining, I wasn't really bothered by their presence at all. But it's a good point to bring up. I understand where you're coming from with that.
That's not a criticism that I have at all. It's just something that I thought of while you guys were talking.
No, it's a good thing to bring up.
And,
I can see that.
To bounce off that, I would argue that they are kind of necessary because they show just how weird the multiple spider people can be. Because if it was just Miles and Peter and Gwen, and it would just be like, oh, it's our normal Spider-Man and another spider person who's a girl, or another spider person who's half black, half Puerto Rican. It's like, oh, so they're just Spider-Man, but just like their gender or their ethnicity is switched around. And when you bring the other three in, it shows like just how out there and bizarre like a spider person can be. Like people probably before this movie, people probably weren't familiar with Spider Noir or Penny Parker or Spider Pig. So it just shows it's almost like a promise to like this is just a taste of how weird the multiple spider people can be, and I hope they expand on that in the sequels.
Good observation. No, very nice to bring that up. Yeah, cool. I like this. I like this discussion. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kessa.
Well, just really quickly, like there were little ways that they helped with the plot, and especially in the fight scenes, I would say. And I think Penny's the one who fixes that little USB thing, and then there's a really great scene with Spider Pig or Spider Ham where like he drops an anvil on Scorpion, I think it is, and he's like, "Oh, you don't like cartoons, huh? Did that feel like a cartoon?"
That was good. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I love. Yeah, and they even bring over their universe-esque physics. Like, who would have thought, like, jumping an anvil? I was like, oh, shit, it works. It works across dimensions. Yeah, that's a great one. Great picks. Yeah, you're right. And Penny is, she is probably the most scientific minded out of all of them. Fixing the booper. And I think that's where I got my, because I like to say the booper, like a small little electronic thing, like if it's in a video game or a movie. I think I got it from this film. I call everything a booper now, which I really love that little USB
Isn't
drive.
it goober?
Goober. Oh, is it the goober? Oh, is it the goober? What do you call it? Did you call it a goober, Casfe? Is that what you said?
Well, I just said it was a USB.
Oh, gotcha. Never mind. Then I just made the word up on my own. They do call it a goober. You're right. I don't know where the fuck I got booper then. I retroactively made it my own word. There you go. But that's cool. I love talking about just, general thoughts and opening of it. I do want to get in more specifics here, and this I'll just leave up open to anyone to talk about, so I won't call on anyone individual until maybe at the very end we talk about like our favorite scenes or moments, of course. But I figure we could start. We already talked about him a lot, but Miles Morales as a character. I think, as I said before, I think they do great things with Miles in this movie. I think for a lot of people, this was their first introduction to Miles, who just were not familiar with the character in the comics. I love that we see his both his culture and also his dynamic with his friends and his self-esteem issues and trying to find himself in this film and finding that confidence in things. That particular sequence, especially, what's up, danger? And that where he finally does embrace the role of Spider-Man is a very emotional and cathartic, and he's such a well-rounded character whose journey is just beginning. So it was an absolute pleasure to see this character who I already was a fan of seemed translated so incredibly well. But any thoughts from anyone right now on Miles or particular moments of the character that really spoke to you or just you really enjoyed or even didn't enjoy?
Yeah, Miles is fantastic. I'm someone who I wasn't like a huge fan of Miles, like not as in I didn't like him or anything. I just didn't read a lot of the comics that he was featured in, but I got the basic idea of who he was, is that he was another kid who lived near... Did he live near Peter, or did he also live
in New York? Oh, he was in Brooklyn. He's Brooklyn.
Okay, Brooklyn, right. And he got bit by the spider, and he got the same powers as Peter, so that when Peter died, he ended up taking over and becoming the new Spider-Man. So I got the gist of that, and I thought, okay, there's an interesting... Like there's an interesting concept here that if you were to make a movie about this guy could potentially be really cool. And yeah, to see him like brought to life and what they do with him and how they tell his story is so fantastic. And when I heard that they had cast Shameik Moore, who before this, his big thing was being the lead in Dope. And so it's like, okay, they've got a really good actor with this, and yeah, he does a fantastic job. He makes the character so like relatable and great and cool and sympathetic and funny and charming and charismatic, and yeah, he's somebody you like him right off the bat, and you're with him the whole movie. You're with him on his journey, and you're rooting for him the entire time.
Nice. Any other thoughts on Miles Morales? Anyone else?
I also found him surprisingly relatable, even though like our backgrounds are different. I found it relatable that he's like having to adjust to this new school with all these elitist rich people, which is a similar experience to what I went through when I was about like 15, 16. And they really did a good job of showcasing how anxious he is having to deal with that culture shock, especially like that whole montage where like it's Great Expectations book. It has, all the different teachers talking, him going to his locker, words like stress and others just echoing in his brain. And I think after he starts becoming Spider-Man, where he says, "Why are my thoughts so loud?" And that was just too real, like he feels like everyone can hear what he's thinking.
Going back to, just Stan Lee and Steve Ditko's original idea for Spider-Man, or a superhero giving them problems that any teenager would have in their life, which makes him so incredibly relatable. In this case, instead of Peter, it's obviously Miles, but he's going through the same things that Peter obviously did. Maybe some subtle changes at the same time. So yeah, it's great. I'm glad that they absolutely translated that so well and focused on that throughout multiple parts of the movie, whether it be his the difference of going to a new school or becoming a hero or becoming a superhero. So yeah, great points. Anyone else want to bring up anything in regards to Miles or his journey? Or
I actually like. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. No, you could go ahead. I was just finishing up. You're good. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I like that. Well, the Miles one, I like that he has someone that to look up to and kind of like guide him in a way. That someone that already lived through the Spider-Man and who actually did a different path instead of continuing being a Spider-Man. And I think what's different from the Tom Holland and all the other Spider-Man that I've watched was he didn't have the Tony Stark or the Uncle Ben that you usually look up to. He was just basically like what you all have said. He was by himself, but because of the whole opening the portal, then he was able to find other spider people that are able to like kind of guide him in a way and kind of awaken him and try to find his voice, I would say. And I think that's what I kind of relate to, because for a long time it's hard to find your own voice. So
Absolutely.
I like it. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's cool that you bring that up because he's set up to have the best mentor ever in Peter Parker of that world. The blonde hair, blue eyed. I got everything figured out, and then he dies, and then he's dead. And who he then gets as his mentor is a guy who doesn't want to be his mentor. Is the complete fucking opposite of the Ultimate Spider-Man. Is a fat schlub who made all the worst decisions in his life. And I want to get more into Jake Johnson a bit because I love him. He is the okay. Go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no. I actually understand why he chose the decisions he chose and why he ended up like that. I mean, I understand he was going through a divorce, and he was just at the rock bottom. So, I mean, him being there, it also kind of helped him try to find his way back into who he really is.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean, they kind of help each other, I would say. Yeah.
Oh yeah, each character helps the other. I mean, it's not not just they're not just helping Miles. Like Miles helps Peter B. Parker, the B Spider-Man, the B tier Spider-Man, get his act together after all these years. I love it too. That sequence where it's like, all right, here you go. Here's the origin. Fuck. I've been Spider-Man for 22 years. It's been rough. Aunt May's dead, made some poor financial decisions, and broke
TGI
up.
Friday. I mean, I would go to TGI Friday Spider-Man.
I would too. Spider-themed restaurant. All that was brilliant. I was like, that's when they did the retelling the origin over and over again. I was like, oh, this is so fucking smart. This is so great. What a great way to both make fun of yourself and also iterate on the origin story and make it interesting again. I want to talk about Peter B. Parker so much because I think Jake Johnson absolutely fucking nails it. But any other thoughts from anyone else on Miles Morales before we move on?
The one thing I really thought was interesting about Miles was his relationship between his dad and his uncle and him. Like, I mean, going into it's like his dad's a cop, so that automatically everyone like it's kind of like, his dad being a cop kind of makes it a little socially awkward for him among the other kids.
Sure.
And then when he becomes Spider-Man, he finds out that his dad doesn't like Spider-Man. He knows he can't really talk to him, so he kind of ends up feeling more isolated. Which it's interesting because as we all went through that phase when we were teenagers. We felt disconnected from our parents, and Miles had this plus this whole Spider-Man thing going on. And then, of course, the one person he can relate to is his Uncle Davis, who is the
super villain.
Yeah. Who's trying to actively kill him multiple times, not realizing he's his nephew
until the last moment. Yeah, no, his relationship with his family is interesting, especially with his father, of course, just because of that strange dynamic of him being embarrassed about his dad being a police officer and and gravitating towards his uncle, but his uncle is a bad guy. He's like, you can say one thing about maybe Aaron Davis, like he loves his nephew. Outside of that, he's kind of a piece of shit. Which I want to talk about Aaron Davis, and I realize I do have another criticism of this movie, and I want to get to it when we talk about the Prowler again, because I think the movie kind of trips over themselves when it comes to that character, especially at the end of the movie. I took issue with something, but you're right. You're right. I'm very excited too to see like how his relationship evolves with his family and his responsibilities as Spider-Man. Also with his mom, who I think his mom, he gets a couple scenes, but she doesn't get a lot in the film. She has that one moment talking about how we don't run away from things with Miles, but for the most part, it's between Miles, his dad, and of course his uncle. So with that is expanded upon in later films, which I imagine. So they got 2 movies, part 1, part 2. So they better give everyone more scenes. Any other thoughts on Miles before we move on?
I just have one small thing.
Sure.
Well, it's that when Michael Bendis made Miles, he didn't do the greatest job of differentiating from Peter, besides the whole camouflage and electric powers he kind of has. Some have found criticism with him being too similar, and I think this movie actually fixes a lot of the stuff and shows why he's besides just the powers, and that he is a distinct character from Peter Parker. That is, he just isn't like a younger version of Peter, basically. And I think it's shown that he's, instead of where Peter was usually very like scientifically gifted, like he would always like be like, I'm gonna make this like science thing. I think Miles is a lot more creative and like artistically gifted, and
definitely artistically gifted, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And sort of an outside of the box thinker.
Definitely. He approaches situations and maybe in a way Peter wouldn't have necessarily even considered, which is what makes him unique. And also, because I know in the comics, like, doesn't his dad die or his mom dies? I forget. I think they'd switch out. And I think in the video game, they're like, it's like you have to, in order to become a hero, you're a superhero, you need to lose your significant other or your uncle or your father figure, your mother figure. I love the movie. There was really, I mean, I guess it does inevitably with his uncle, but it's like, hey, he fucking, he brought it on himself, really. But, like, they don't kill either of his parents. Now, it's not to say that they won't do that later down the road, but I kind of found that refreshing that he didn't have to lose his mom or dad to, I gotta go ahead and be a superhero. I like that they didn't do that. So that eliminated another, as you said, another thing that you can instantly compare him with Peter Parker, saying like they're too similar to each other. So he didn't have to have one of his family members die to be Spider-Man, which I thought was refreshing. I like that a lot. Any other thoughts on Miles before we move on?
I was just confused a bit.
Okay.
With the 2 white Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
So which is which? Because I thought the brunette one was kind of like the older Peter Parker, if he lived, I guess. But they share the same Gwen.
Oh, okay. So Peter Parker. So there's the Peter Parker of Miles's world, the blonde hair, blue eyed. I do everything right. Spider-Man. That's Chris Pine. Peter Parker. That's the person of his world. The other one, the brown-haired, brown-eyed one, the schlub, Jake Johnson, Peter B. Parker, that's from a different universe. And Gwen, she is from her own separate universe as well. That's not related to Miles or Peter B. Parker. She's in her own little world, her own universe, I should say. So they're all separated. They just all came together in Miles's world. And how the movie starts out, that blonde-haired, blue-eyed one, he dies. So he's not related to the other Spider-Mans, except the dimension travel universe thing. So that's it. Any other? Did someone else want to speak? I think I heard someone else trying to say something.
Oh, I was gonna say that I 100% agree with Nick about the whole Brian Michael Bendis interpretation, because I feel like this version here. I mean, you can say this version or the video game version. I think those origin stories are just really good, and I think those should be the templates going forward, because one thing I really like about Miles is that people actually like him.
Yes.
Peter, even though like Homecoming, it's a modern day take on Peter Parker and Spider-Man, of course, but people like I feel like his only friend is Genki and Aunt May. and then a few other people. But like he still has Flash Thompson who bullies him all the time. Whereas Miles, like you see that in his neighborhood, like people like him. He's talking to people, all that stuff is. And another thing that I notice is that I don't know if I see this a lot in movies is that usually when someone's like, oh man, I gotta fit into this new crowd, they're moving to a different like city or state or whatever. He's just moving to he's just like going to a different school.
Yeah.
And like he has to adjust to that. And so I thought that was interesting that he's just going to a different school and like he has to adjust to that. And like Cass Faye was saying, that's a real situation.
Absolutely. The movie does a good job of circumventing, I think, maybe a lot of tropes we often see in superhero origin stories. It's where it's like, okay, we're kind of like they cut corners when they need to, and in the best way possible. I'm not even saying that as a criticism. I think it's like, no, I'm glad you're circumventing some of the fucking common tropes we always see all the time. That's boring, and so I like that. By bringing in so many a wide variety of different characters from different universes, that makes it a little more fun. So I think that which prevents it from there's a bit of there's a form that you can see it, but it's not so formulaic that you're just kind of bored by it, which I really appreciate, especially when it comes to Spider-Man, which had in the past has been formulaic and has gotten kind of redundant in a way. I mean, the Mark Webb Spider-Man films, case in point. But yeah, moving on from Miles Morales, of course, we can always bring up more about him and like of our favorite scenes, which there are many, of course. But I did want to talk about the Peter Parkers, if you will. We already talked about them to a degree. I like how the movie starts off with that whole like, no, this is the Peter Parker that figured everything out. His life is great. He's the blonde hair, blue eye, like I'm the best of the best, baby. I'm not even like saying like he has that attitude because he's legitimately like a really good person in the movie. And because he is so good at his job and he clearly loves his city and he loves protecting all these people and things. And he loves being Spider-Man. It's like, Peter Parker loves being Spider-Man. That's amazing. We don't often see that. Usually Spider-Man's always fucking miserable. And to see like, he got everything right and then he died. And then he fucking dies. He's beaten to death by Kingpin, which I thought was like surprisingly brutal in the movie. I was like, oh fuck, he's dead. Oh my shit. I was like, how's this? I didn't see the Spider-Man in any of the trailers. How's this? Oh, he's dead. That's what happened to him. And so I think that was cool how they, introduced that and, poking fun at the origin, poking fun of the Raimi films. Cause that, that whole thing, they totally play homage. You see the iconic moments, maybe in a slightly changed way in the movie itself, where we have the upside down kiss. We have him stopping the train. We have like the car going through the window and all of that. We see versions of that, clearly paying homage to those scenes. And obviously, famously, the, get on up the dance scene. And I did this. We don't talk about this. I was like, okay, good. I'm glad you're being self-aware. But then we get to, I think, a character I love. I think a lot of people really reacted well to, which is the Peter B. Parker, Jake Johnson, who is perfectly cast. Jake Johnson will spend the rest of his life playing you're always going to be like late 30s, early 40s schlubby guy. Just you're like the best friend that never got his life together. I mean, you're just kind of hanging by a thread constantly. And it's like, wow, he's so perfectly cast as that character. Probably because he's had experience playing it like that character for over a decade at this point. I can see why the filmmakers wanted him for the role. But I just love how we see how pathetic his life is and how he made all the wrong decisions. He's the opposite of the ideal Peter Parker we saw initially. And we see that Aunt May is dead and his marriage is falling apart. And I mean, that sad fucking montage of him crying in the tub, eating pizza, gut hanging out. It's like, oh my God. Some people love that. Just like, yes, I want it. There are definitely people that get off to Spider-Man being consistently miserable. And it's like, oh my God. I felt it almost was like a joke to a degree, like look how pathetic he is. This is what Peter's been for so long, for so much of his existence. He's been just this schlubby guy, really, when you think about it. It's of course this would be the end result. And I love how they showcase that, but I also love his arc of him finally realizing, I gotta get my fucking life together. And there's so many great scenes. I love that everyone constantly says that he's fat. I think that's really funny. He's got that gut. But yeah, I really enjoyed Peter B. Parker in the movie. Any thoughts on Peter B. Parker? B. Spider-Man, if you will.
Yeah, I gotta say, Jake Johnson's one of those guys where like every time I see him in something, there's some. I don't know if it's just the fact that like we're both from Illinois and we're both kind of snarky and we have kind of similar senses of humor. But every time I see him in something, I always find myself relating to him in the sense of like, if I was a character in this movie, that's who I would be. Like especially in something like also Nick brought up in the chat, Jurassic World, where he's like the tech guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when I watch him in that, I'm like, if Jurassic World was real and I had to get a job there, that's the job I would have, and that's the attitude I would have. I would be constantly shit talking the commercialism and talking about how like that first part was legit and this is all a bunch of bullshit. And yeah, watching him in this, it's like, yeah, this is like an older version of me who just happens to have Spider-Man powers, and I love that so much. Like I live vicariously through him, and it's so much fun. And yeah, I love how he's the polar opposite of Peter Parker Prime, I guess, the Chris Pine version, who's basically like the Tobey Maguire version except with blonde hair. And he is such especially rewatching it, he is such the Tobey Maguire, not just in terms of like recreating the scenes, but I actually noticed that Aunt May's house is basically the same house from the Raimi movies.
Oh wow.
And when they show like that quick clip with Uncle Ben, not only does he look like Cliff Robertson, but they actually use an audio recording of him saying the "Great power, great responsibility" line.
Oh, so that is Cliff Robertson.
Yeah, that's him. So I thought that was awesome. I thought that was a really sweet little touch.
Oh, cool. Okay, I wondered if that was him. So thank you for confirming. Nice.
Yeah, that's him. And yeah, like the dichotomy between the two of them is so good. And I also like that they cast people who, if they were 20 years younger and they were making a live action Spider-Man movie, they could have totally played Peter Parker. Like Jake Johnson could have totally been Peter Parker in a live action movie back in his like late teens, early 20s. And even Chris Pine, you're probably thinking like, wait, how would Chris Pine be like a good Peter Parker? But there was actually 15 to 20 years ago, he was in this terrible movie with Lindsay Lohan called Just My Luck, where he was this nerdy guy who constantly had life shitting on him, and he was wearing glasses, and he was a dork, and he was like, I remember watching it like, man, this guy could have been Peter Parker if they had gone, if they hadn't gone with Tobey Maguire. Wow,
that's cool. There you go. Maybe I guess the filmmakers saw that movie and they went, "You could be Spider-Man." He's like, "Yeah, that's nice."
I don't think so, because I think I'm only one of like 12 people who have seen that movie. But yeah, that's a nice thought.
They could have been the other 12. You don't know. The other 11 that might have seen it. No, no, great points to bring up. Anyone else? Any other thoughts on either Peter Parker?
I really love how Peter B. Parker is like this perfect combination of messy and competent, because he's like so desensitized that in fight scenes there are times where he's kind of taking it in stride. Like he does a lot of stuff barefoot at that one place where they have to infiltrate,
Right.
That's where they meet Octavius and everything. But like he kind of just is like, yeah, I've done this before. I've heard this before. Typical Spider-Man stakes. Just wait till what happens next and all that. And I just love how at first on paper it doesn't seem like he's going to be a good mentor, but he really steps up to the plate really quickly.
He has the ability to be like, he's just kind of riding the wave. That's what his thing is. Like, yeah, you're right. He's done all this before. And if he actually, he doesn't put any effort into anything anymore, where he's still like, he puts the bare minimum and he still manages to do it. But if he actually like really pushed himself to be that Spider, he would be the best Spider-Man. He would become that, but he's so beaten down by life that he's like, I just don't care anymore. I'll do it, but I'm gonna complain about it and be sarcastic and do the bare minimum, and we'll eke out in the end. But you're right. He's there's just something about that dry wit and sarcasm, and just there's even a scene where he's so tired, where Aunt May, she sees him again and sees him, because I guess they're. Or Peter looks obviously similar to him, and his Aunt May looks similar to her, and she goes, "Oh my God, Peter, you're tired." He's like, "I am tired. I am so fucking tired." I was like, I can relate to that. I dig that a lot. Any other thoughts on either Peter Parker, Peter A, or Peter B. Parker?
I like both versions of Peter Parker, and I also noticed very much like you said, the minute Spider-Man gets happy and he has everything he wants, they kill him because the
Always.
writers just can't allow that.
Our characters can't be happy. We can't move on. They can't grow as people.
Right, just
Yeah.
it doesn't work. So Peter B. Parker better watch out.
That's true.
Mephisto needed that marriage.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
But I have to say, they've shown a lot of old cynical versions of some of our heroes before,
True.
whether it be in comics or shows or games or movies or whatever. But what I truly appreciate about this movie is that they show Peter B. Parker, and he is that cynical version of himself, but he still has that driving force that Spider-Man has, where,
Yeah.
with great power comes great responsibility. Even though he's about to walk
Don't
away
say
from
it!
Miles.
Don't you dare say it! I'm sorry, keep going.
No, you're good. But even when he's trying to walk away from Miles, he's not. He gets 2 feet. Like he would never. Even as beat down as Spider-Man is, he's Spider-Man, and I think a lot of properties that have that old cynical character tend to forget that.
Well, he still has that Peter Parker guilt where he can't help
Yes.
himself, where that follows him forever. So it's worse than Catholic guilt, and he has that. Him and Daredevil have that same problem. No,
Yeah.
great points, Peter. Does anyone have any other last thoughts on either Peter Parker before we move on to probably the other co-lead, if you will, of this movie?
Well, oh, sorry.
You can go. You can go first.
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, I like that Marvel finally acknowledged the white messiah complex that a lot of actually every comic and comic movies have, and I actually like that finally they're picking a person of color as a Spider-Man, and so I think it's just Marvel's way of trying to separate from that same trope of having that blonde blue-eyed hero that we all look up to, and it's a nice change, I would say, and yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Person Man, do you have something else that you wanted to bring up as well?
Well, first of all, it's been a while since I've seen it, so I forget exactly what he says, but my favorite line from him is when he's talking about, well, I guess here I'm 10 years younger and blonde, so that's weird.
Oh yeah, when he first arrives there, yeah.
And when I first saw this, I know that Chris Bryan's Spider-Man is the one that has all the Sam Raimi movie references, but when I saw this, I assumed that this is what happened to Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man after his movies got canceled, and he's not taking it well.
Shit, yeah, it went downhill. We'll see.
Damn.
We'll find out. We'll find out what happens.
That made it
least in
funnier
No
for
Way
me, and that's all. I think that's all I have to say about that.
No, it's fine. No, thank you. But yeah, I did want to move on to. Of course, we can bring up more scenes. Of course. Oh, I'm sorry. Did someone else want to say something?
Yeah, just something real quick. I'll give Peter B. Parker credit for one thing. Like, if you want to dress up a superhero and you don't have the body for it, you definitely can do a good job with Peter B. Parker, or as I like to call him, Sweatpants Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah, Sweatpants Spider-Man.
Because that's who I was for Halloween this year. Because I had the jacket, so I just got the sweatpants and the top and the mask, and
he made it a lot easier. He made it a lot easier.
Because we have Fat Thor and Thick Daddy Boba Fett. So it's like, man, if you're plus size guy trying to dress up as a badass character, you have options now.
Oh man, that's true. I just realized.
These movies have made it easier for people. So that's a good point. Moving on from the Peter Parkers, of course we can go back to them as well. But I did want to talk about the other I think lead in the movie, and that is Gwen Stacy, which I'm so happy about Gwen Stacy because I've always loved her as like that. To me, was always Spider-Man's first true love, and but when you look at like her comics, where she was originally featured in, she's just very much a damsel in distress. There's not a lot to her, but I'm really happy that she got new life in the comics thanks to the terrible name Spider-Gwen comics. Now I'm glad they just call her Spider-Woman in the movie. I was like, yeah, just call her Spider-Woman. That's fine. So she's gotten a second life, and she's gotten to be able to do so many things. And I even like what they do with Gwen Stacy in the Mark Webb Spider-Mans. That they really expand upon her character, and even the Spectacular Spider-Man animated series. So Gwen's kind of had like a renaissance of great material, I think, for the past 15 or so years, and it's kind of come to fruition here with her as Spider-Woman, as this, which is based off the comic book line of her being bit by the radioactive spider and her having to battle her best friend, Peter Parker, who becomes the Lizard, which they reference in the movie to a degree. You see it like in shadows and things. That was pretty cool. Excellently voiced by Haley Steinfeld, who has just dominated animation for the last few years. Or this is just the year of Haley Steinfeld, I think. Everything from Hawkeye. Yeah. I mean, she's in a lot of adaptations of either video games or comic books. But Kate Bishop and Hawkeye, going to be Spider-Gwen or Spider-Woman again in the next Into the Spider-Verse movie sequel. And part 2, I imagine. I feel like she's going to be the one that's going to get her spinoff. I kind of feel like that's going to... I don't know if they've announced what the spinoff's going to be, but I figure... They have already? Oh, okay. Is it her or is it something else?
I think it's her and Jessica Drew, or maybe
that makes sense.
That makes sense. I can't remember the Silk something, maybe.
Oh, Silk. I think it's called. I think the other character is called Silk. Spider Woman. So I think you got it right. But I just love her. How she's introduced in the movie at first, where she's just as a classmate. And how she just kind of laughs at Miles at his bad joke. She was like, "I'm sorry, it was so quiet." and their chemistry and their back and forth, and how she has been Spider-Man for, I think they say like 2 years, and she's confident in it, but she's still struggling at the same time. They go into the fact that she has no fucking social life at all. And that's kind of made her very distant. And so she's struggling with the dynamic of having both a secret identity, having a normal life of a teenage girl, but also balancing being a superhero, which is what Peter constantly fought with throughout his whole life. And she's doing that right now. And I thought that's how they showcased in the film was great. And I'm excited to see her in the future. And I love how they take their time, even though they're hinting at, especially in the new clip that was just released, they're hinting at a slow build, a slow burn romance between all of them, or between the two of them. And I like that. Even Peter's like, I know what you kids are going to be doing later on. Jesus Christ. When they're in the back of the bus, I thought that was really funny. But I like that they're building that over time. They're not rushing it. Doesn't feel unearned. And then we can get to thirsty Miles Morales in that clip and Enter the Spider-Verse, which I thought was so adorable and dorky. But thoughts on Gwen Stacy and Spider-Woman in this movie?
You go.
I really liked how they established her but like right away as being sort of an outcast like Miles was, but also like her angst is a slightly different flavor. She has this jadedness to her that also causes her to develop this friendship with Peter B. Parker. Like, I was really intrigued by their interactions throughout the movie because you can tell that she sees a lot of her best friend in him. But as she mentions to him in a later scene, like, I've been here before, like where he wants to talk to MJ, she's like, I've been here before. That's not your MJ. So it's like little things here and there that hint at all this angst that she has inside of herself, but she's always playing it cool. She's always like trying to be all snarky and stuff. And oh yeah, and then there's that part near the end where she tells Peter B. Parker, oh, you don't have to do this. I'll stay behind and I'll do it. And I'm thinking, wow, that's a really dark thing for a teenage girl to say, but it's probably also relatable for a lot of millennials and Gen Zers because a lot of young people these days are really cynical and dark like that and kind of, semi-suicidal and all that. So it's just like the fact that she doesn't have much regard for her own life, No,
I think what you brought up is great. It, to both our points, I just think she is consistently struggling with her dual identity. And she doesn't know how to, like, she's clearly fully invested in the Spider-Woman thing. That's what she is. But even when she goes over her origin, and she did all these things, and she was involved in all these projects, whether it be a band or helping her dad, and now that's all gone. And now she doesn't interact with anybody, and she is alone. And yeah, she has that kind of joking personality, which is like, oh, I'm just posting gifs about possibly killing myself. It's like, okay. It kind of has that flavor, if you will, to her character. That she's very self-deprecating, but she's still confident in her abilities as the Spider-Woman of her world. And so, yeah, she's multifaceted, like so many of the main cast absolutely is. Any other thoughts on Gwen Stacy's Spider-Woman?
In Spider-Man comics, there was two rules, or two characters you could never bring back. You could never bring back Uncle Ben, and you can never bring back Gwen Stacy, and that was it for years. And her character in the comics, oh boy, did they did some really bad retcons to her. And again, I read Ultimate Spider-Man. What they do to her in that is also just horrible.
It's mean-spirited.
It is just mean-spirited. And
yeah, I remember reading that and being like, why the fuck did they do her like that? Like, that's just like, I get that you want her. I don't know if I want to say what it is because I don't know how.
You can go ahead. You can go ahead and say it. Go ahead.
Okay, if I'm remembering correctly, she gets killed by Carnage, and in a really like gruesome way, like something out of a horror movie almost. And it's like, but you didn't have to do her like that. Come on.
Yeah, it's body horror where he literally sucks like her fluids from her.
Yeah.
And she becomes she looks like you ever seen the Mummy movie, the Brendan Fraser Mummy movie? She looks like one of those guys when Imhotep sucked all their juices out. It's like, what the fuck? It comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's like,
and
wow.
it's like after her dad just died, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Give it a break. Gee, And anyway, so that's why I really like Spider-Gwen as a character, because it's actually an interesting backstory, an interesting take at the character. I'm sorry. Sometimes she's also referred to as Ghost Spider. She's Spider-Woman in this.
That's
so
right.
It's weird.
That's right. Yeah, Ghost Spider, which is not a great name either.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna call her. You can call her whatever you want to call her. I call her either Spider-Gwen or Spider-Woman.
Anyway, that's why I like her, and I like her backstory it's a very interesting. I like the idea that Peter became the Lizard as from bullying, and I hope the sequel or spinoff I thought the spinoff was going to be her. It looks into that, and kind of we see that backstory actually play out and kind of see what happened. But
I would like to see that. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead, Chris.
No, I was good. I was just agreeing with you. I was just saying that, even though I'm like, I don't want any more origins, I'm done, because so many people aren't familiar with her origin story. The majority of people don't know Spider-Gwen, Spider-Woman's origin. Like, they do not. I'm going to say 99% of people don't know. And so that one, if they wanted to explore that for a segment of the film and then go and transition into like the stuff after the events of these Spider-Verse movies, and I'm all for it. But keep going.
Oh, agreed. But I think she's really interesting character. I think she's very much of Marvel's Batgirl. Has a very similar dynamic.
I can see that.
Her dad's being chief of police, and her, but she's a little bit more of a rebel, I would say, just because she's in a band. And I just enjoy the character. And also to an earlier, everyone in this movie is in a superhero movie. Mahershala Ali's Blade. What's his name? The cop dad was in Eternals.
Brian Tyree Henry.
Yeah, that's his name.
That's right. Yeah, he plays Jefferson Davis. Yeah.
I mean, Nick Cage was almost Superman, but and I guess
he was Ghost Rider. He was Ghost Rider. Yeah. He was Ghost Rider.
God, I haven't thought about that movie in at least a year. Thank you for reminding me.
Zoe Kravitz voices Mary Jane Watson. She's Catwoman.
Oh right.
Yeah, she's
Kingpin
I'm sorry. Keep going.
Kingpin Sabretooth.
That's right. It's Liev Schreiber.
And Agatha's Doc Ock in this.
That's right. Liv. My friends call me Liv. My enemies call me Doc Ock. Yeah. A lot clearly Marvel and Sony just like, okay, you can be this character, but then you can be a character in this other thing. Live action animation. That's what's so great about animation. You can play multiple characters. How long of doing live action stuff.
Chris Pine is Captain Kirk.
It's Captain Kirk, and he's Wonder Woman's boy toy.
Oh,
he's what's his name?
Steve Trevor.
Steve Trevor, thank you. Yeah, Captain Steve Trevor. Yeah. Making all that big superhero bucks. Any other thoughts on Spider-Woman or / Gwen Stacy?
I think of the three main Spider people, Gwen is probably the most competent and experienced of them. I mean, Peter B. Parker, he has the most experience, but he's in a slump, and it's his competence is being tested. While Miles is completely brand new to all this. She's kind of carrying both of them on her back throughout the story.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that she's just the most invested in being a spider person, if you will, because her she has no social life anymore, which, and in turn is very unhealthy. But yeah, she is the most in just like, I need to be Spider-Man or Spider-Woman in this case. So yeah, I agree with you.
And clearly, she's definitely suffering from PTSD from all the stuff she's been through.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's major trauma with her that she is not handling well. So I love that everyone has a problem. Like, even though, like, and the thing is, it's so good. I appreciate this. Like, everyone's competent. Like, everyone knows what they need to do. And because of their mutual experience, like, no one is just like an idiot. Even Miles, who is just, he has no experience, but he is so earnest, and he eventually becomes good. And we see him grow over time and become more confident himself. I just love that we just didn't get even when we get to the joke characters, we'll talk about next. Like, none of those characters are just like there for just like sight gags or something. They're just there to say something stupid. They know they're legitimately serve the action that is happening in the scene, and they're not just being there for a comedic moment, which I really appreciate. Before we move on to like the, I think we could talk about all three of these people, and then eventually I want to get to the villains. At least three of the main ones at the very least. But any other thoughts on Gwen Stacy / Spider-Woman?
I actually like Spider-Gwen as a name. It has a nice ring to it.
It does.
Yeah, and I actually like how completely opposite she is with the Andrew Garfield's Gwen Stacy, who was, to me, she was completely useless. And, this Gwen is actually quite, she was quite good. She was kind of like Black Widow. And I just like her. She's not like the usual damsel in distress, I would say.
She's not, and that is refreshing.
Yeah.
Well, unless anyone has any other thoughts on Gwen Stacy / Spider-Woman. Oh, go ahead, Persimans.
This is not a thought. I actually got to go. So.
Oh, okay. No problem. Well, hey, Persimans, an absolute pleasure to have you here. If you ever, I know this episode's going long, which I knew it would, because it's, we have a lot of people here, and of course we have this is a very popular film. We have a lot to say about it. But it was a pleasure having you here, man. If you want to stop by for the next one, go ahead and let us know. I think we'll be doing we'll do another Toon one, which should be fun. But have a great day, sir.
You too. Good luck with the
Bye.
rest of the.
Bye. But chat. What was I going to say? Oh, yes. So moving on from Gwen Stacy, Spider-Woman, unless anyone has anything else they want to say about that, please feel free at any point. But I didn't want to talk about the other three characters of Spider-Ham. I got to say it right this time. Spider-Ham, Spider-Pig, Peter Porker. I'm going to call him Peter Porker for the sake of convenience. Peter Porker, Spider-Noir, and Penny Parker. Spider, as she is just called. I thought they were all adorable. They are very much there. They are the comic relief of the movie, but they never got annoying to me, despite being radically different from each other. I mean, perfect cast of Nicolas Cage doing, that transatlantic accent, and I love that. Talking about, he always has a fucking breeze. Like, why? Where's the wind coming from? There's no wind in here. It just has that. Peter Porker, very much. He's a Looney Tunes cartoon. That's what it is, and he indulges in all those tropes. And I didn't think they ever got old. I really enjoyed them. And I love Penny because she is that total like anime girl, but she's also really smart. She has a head for tech. And I love that she has like her little radioactive, she has a special bond with her spider. And he's like, it's a little spider inside a suit that's constantly making emojis with its face. It's like, this is adorable. But I like that the little interaction they'll have with each other and with the main cast, of course. But anytime it was brought before, and I agree. They don't get as much depth, but I never thought they were annoying. They're all competent. They all do a good job in the movie. And I would like to see more of them in the future. But I really enjoyed all three of them in the film. Any thoughts on either three of those characters?
I thought that John Mulaney was just perfect as Peter Porker, and I love how the inclusion of his over-the-top like slapstick and cartoon violence, it didn't bog down the story, it didn't take me out. It was useful where it needed to be. And it was a good comic relief, and he gets a serious moment too when he's telling Miles that you can't save everyone. So his character does have depth beyond that. And yeah, I think I've already said I really love Spider Noir and Penny, and I just wanted to see more of them, honestly, because I liked them so much. But I love the contributions that they made to the plot as well. And that Rubik's cube was so funny.
Oh, geez, that what a great fucking gag, yeah. And he solves it. He solves it at the end somehow. He somehow figures it out, even though I guess subtly gray, a little more gray, white. Yeah, yeah. No,
Even
totally,
though he has
totally
no
agree.
clue what purple is.
Yeah, he doesn't know what color is. Because I don't know what any of these are. We talking about? That's God. That's so fucking funny. Any other thoughts on the trio of characters?
Yeah, I thought they were all awesome. Like I mentioned earlier, they show just how weird the Spider-Verse can get with the various iterations of Spider People. And yeah, I kind of knew about Spider Noir beforehand, and I think I knew about Spider Ham. I had no idea about Penny Parker, and after I saw the movie, I was like, I don't know if she's been in comics before or whatever, but if she has, and it's anything like how this interpretation is, I want to read those comics, especially with, like you said, the relationship between her and her pet spider robot. I just think that's so bizarre, but also really sweet and wholesome and touching. That, yeah, I thought all three of them were fantastic.
Nice. Any other thoughts?
You could go first.
Oh, thank you. Mine was mainly for Spider-Man Noir because I think, like a lot of people, my first exposure to him was in Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions.
Oh, yes.
Where he's in that game, and he's basically the Batman self-fiction. But I always just thought it was really interesting take of the 30s, and I love Nicolas Cage doing that, like Humphrey Bogart, like 30s actor, like
sounding like this.
Yeah, a little bit like that, but like a little bit also like using all the like gangster and almost even like
You're right. The gangster
slang.
lingo.
I don't know, and I just love his design and the look they went with him in this movie, and just how he's drawn, how he's, the wind is always on his cape.
It's cool. He's monochromatic in a world that's full of color. He has no color. He's just shadows and inking. So yeah, no, great one. Thunderly, did you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I really do like Spider Noir. Yeah. Like Nicolas Cage, I've always like thought, even though he's over the top, he's still one of my favorites. So like the moment I heard that, oh yeah, he's in this movie, I'm like, wait a minute, I gotta see this. Yeah. And I like his scenes are like hilarious because he's like dark, and like his voice is like a little bit like gritty, but like at the same time he has that comedic moments that is like I like Spider-Ham. I knew about Spider-Ham for a little bit before the movie. Through, I think it was like a comic where they just introduced a bunch of Spider-Mans from different universes. I never knew about the anime Spider-Man or Spider-Woman until that movie.
Penny Parker.
Yeah. And like I do like her a lot and adorable, honestly. But out of all three of them, I do like Spider-Ham the most. Sure. Because John Mulaney just kills it as him. And I think they made like a short after that, just like,
oh really? I didn't even know.
I think it was in the Blu-ray or something like that. I might be wrong. I might be wrong. I haven't seen the Blu-ray in a while, but
I wouldn't be surprised if they did though. I mean, yeah. It was popular.
And I just love how with the nose they also put like the white eyes, but it's
yeah,
part. Yeah,
it's a cool little detail. No, great, great to bring that up. Ace Rock, welcome to the show. I hope you're doing very well, sir. Been going through a lot of the characters, but I figure since you're here, and if anyone wants to bring up anything up about the trio of Spider Noir or Penny Parker or Spider-Ham, please continue to do so. But Ace Rock, I want to give you a moment and just first of all, welcome. Hope you're doing well today. And I want to ask you, what was your expectation? What were your expectations before you saw this movie? Your general thoughts on it, and then how did you feel about the movie after you had already seen it? I'm just kind of curious.
So, I'm sorry I'm late, everyone.
No problem. No, it's just like come in whenever you want to come in. It's no like you're not. You need to be here or you'll be expelled. No. I mean, whenever you want to come in, man, no problem. This is totally not mandatory.
You're gonna give me in-house suspension or a detention.
Absolutely.
So Into the Spider-Verse, I think is actually probably in my top 5 films of all time.
There you go.
When I first saw it, I'd heard about it, and it seemed like it was like in development hell for a long time. That's just what the sense I got, like waiting for it to come out. I felt like it kept getting delayed. But everything I ever saw about it, I really liked. And then when I did see it, I again, in my attempt to indoctrinate my son, made Caillou go see it with me. Caillou's got like zero interest in Spider-Man.
Interesting.
Like in the car, I'm always making like Spidey hands at him, and like when he was a little baby, I would say like thwip thwip, and I would get him to do it, and he had like no idea what he's just making the sound. But when I saw it, I legit cried.
Yeah.
At the scene where, I mean, probably like everyone knows what scene I'm about to say, but where he's like, it's just a leap of faith, and he jumps, and then he become the moment Miles Morales becomes Spider-Man. For me, it was such a it was like I think I even stood up or like fist pumped or something. But like I was, if Caillou was like, if he was like 15, the cringe he would have felt at the way I was behaving at that moment would have been traumatizing. So I'm glad that he was only like maybe like 4 or 5 when this happened. But I adore that film. I absolutely love that film. For me, it's, of all the Spider-Man films, I think it perfectly captures what Spider-Man is all about. I think it's gorgeously animated, and I don't think I've ever seen anything like it up until that point.
Yeah.
And then when I saw, what's funny, I know you guys talked about this last week, but the series that really reminds me, like has that same sort of like energy is Arcane.
Very much so. I mean, it's definitely. I don't know if it's the exact same animation style, but it's very close. It's very close.
It just. But the things that I love about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, there are so many things going on in the corners, in the background. There's so many little choices that they make that I really appreciated. Like there's panels that they recreate from Miles Morales' comics. Like that they just slide in there effortlessly. And then also just mirroring the OG Spider-Man comic scene where Peter Parker discovers his superpowers is almost panel for panel exactly what you see in Into the Spider-Verse. It's one of those films where I can watch it over and over and over again, and it's one of my favorite movies.
Nice. No, thank you for sharing. And of course I'll ask you, because we're talking about the more comical trio of characters, the other Spider people, specifically Spider Noir or Peter Parker or Penny Parker. Does anyone else have any thoughts on those characters before we move on to some of the villains? I know there's a lot of other supporting hero characters we can talk about, and at the end we can definitely mention them. But does anyone have any other thoughts in regards to the more comedic characters in the film?
My thoughts when it comes to, when I heard they were casting Nick Cage as Spider Noir, that was one of the signs I thought, okay, this movie's gonna be pretty good, because I mean, like, Spider Noir is kind of like a goofy character to mix in there to begin with, and Nick Cage is one of those few actors who is good at hamming it up and being over top and actually does it well. So I'm like, okay, like he's perfect for it. And then when I saw the trailers where they were showing him, I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be good.
Yeah, he nailed it. I don't know if he'll be back for the next movie, but I would like to see him come back. Or hell, they could potentially do spinoffs if they want, and they have that ability now, and they will. These movies keep making money. You will see a Spider Noir movie. Would not be shocked by that. Well, moving on from. Oh, I'm sorry. Keep going. Go ahead.
Sorry,
No, no,
I
no.
just wanted to say one more thing. That I think the movie does a good job at making me want to see like spin-offs or more about these
Yeah.
characters, because like I don't know anything about Spider-Gwen, but after watching this movie I'm like, oh, I do want to know more about her. And also I think Casve brought this up earlier about how Spider-Ham, he says, like, you can't save everybody, but I noticed that all the characters, they had a loved one, pass, die in their universe. And so I like want to know, like, what happened with Spider-Ham. Like, did his cat die, or what was his who was his love interest that passed away? So
Did his pet human die?
His pet
yeah, there you go.
Christ, because isn't that the thing with dude, I just realized that you were bringing up Spider-Ham. Wasn't he was a spider bitten by a radioactive pig? Isn't that what his thing is? Like, he wasn't a pig bitten by a radioactive spider. That's what it was. Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, I want to know what happened in his life. Who died? Who died in his reality? He lost his entire fucking family, probably. He had one of the most dramatic lines in the movie. You can't save everyone.
Someone went to the farm. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yep, there you go. That's what happened. Yeah, they got slaughtered. Does anyone have any other last minute thoughts before we move on to some of the villains in the movie?
I actually love Penny. Out of all the characters, she's the one that I care the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because Penny is me. She's cute, white, but she's a threat. She's smart. So they
She is a threat. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, she is.
You
Yeah.
got a lot of
I love how
spunk.
she's constantly snacking.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
me.
she is. She is doing that. Yeah.
She always has like shrimp chips or something. Like, she's constantly snacking the entire time.
Yeah, that's me. I love that.
I love they brought up all the little anime tropes of her. It was quite adorable. Well, moving on from those characters, we can continue. We can, if you want to, we can bring them up again. Definitely, especially at the end of the show. Anything things we want to say or scenes that we really liked with those characters. Please do so. But I do want to move on to some of the villains, and there's a lot of villains in this movie. Funny enough, but there definitely is like three main ones I want to say. And I did want to start with the Prowler, and I brought up, like, I didn't have that many criticisms about the movie overall. And maybe like some of the animation in the background looks really funky, and it just kind of hurt my eyes and like physically. So I was like, ugh. Sometimes when I look at it, but I did realize that I did have a criticism. Like, I think Mahershala Ali does a great job voicing Aaron Davis and Prowler. Obviously, I loved the Prowler's theme. By the way, holy shit, that it's so scary when every time it pops up. Love his music and how they showcase his power set and use of like tech and everything. And I mean, it's great. And, obviously, capitalizing on the fact that the Prowler is the uncle of Miles. I love that. I thought that's dynamic. So cool. We're seeing more. We saw that in the video game, and I'm hoping one day we'll see that in the movie with Donald Glover reprising the role of Aaron Davis and being the Prowler. That would be fucking amazing. But I like what they use with him. However, I will say, I like his relationship, how he clearly does love his family, and he obviously loves his nephew to the point where it's like, even though I'm on a job, I'm not going to kill you. One thing I do feel is weird to me in the movie, because I like how his death is handled. I like when he's murdered by Kingpin and he's saying, like, Miles, you're the best of us, you can be better than me. Like, I love all that stuff, but it's weird that they then honor him at the end of the film by doing that mural. It's like he still is a criminal, and he was also the guy that helped kill Peter Parker in this reality. And I'm like, that personally doesn't sit well with me. I was like, yeah, I don't know if I would have done that. He's still a murderer. At the very least, an accessory to one. I was like, okay, all right. I mean, I guess I'll let that slide. That was odd to me, but overall, I still like how he was used in the film itself. And Mahershala Ali kills it like he always does. But any thoughts on the Prowler / Aaron Davis?
Yeah, what they do. Yeah, I love what they do with the Prowler in this, and yeah, I think Mahershala Ali does such an amazing job, especially considering, had he done like any voice acting before this, or?
I have no idea.
Because if he hadn't, then yeah, for his first time out, he does such a great job. And I remember seeing it at the screening I went to with all the other students, when the credits rolled and they were showing all the actors' names. When his name came up, that got the most applause out of all the actors' names. The only one who came kind of close to matching it, or maybe matched it, was Nick Cage. But yeah, he was the definite standout. He was a definite standout for me.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember in the '90s Spider-Man when they had the Prowler on. It was I mean, he literally has a line. It's like I felt like an animal. Like he's like I felt like a Prowler. I'm like, oh, it was lame but cool at the time. Yeah, as this '90s Spider-Man show was.
Sure.
But this version is one of the probably the just how he's animated, how he moves, how he fights, even how he like. I loved like his Spawn-esque cape and like just how he talks and how he doesn't really say anything when he's the Prowler. He just
he's
is
silent.
a literal like a lethal killer basically. And I think what I like about him most in the movie is his relationship with Miles. And for Miles, he's the one person he's his one really big confidant. And in the comics, it played out much. The Prowler was a scumbag. He tried to basically abuse Miles when he found out he was Spider-Man.
Yep.
And in the comics, and it was pretty shitty. And this version, it's I think very interesting. And it's like the second he sees Miles, he kind of, he has conflict. I think the reason they put up the mural, maybe I'm wrong, is his sacrifice to Miles is the fact that he didn't kill him and basically, gave Miles the inspiration to be Spider-Man.
It was his atonement for his sins.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that. That's a good point. Definitely see that. Any other thoughts on Aaron Davis Prowler, Mahershala Ali's performance in the role?
I just like how close his relationship.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'd say I just like how close his relationship is with Miles. Where it's not something that they spend so much time on, but in the short amount of time that they have, you can see that chemistry, between the two voice actors, where, he's even telling him how to pick up girls with that stupid hey thing, because I personally don't think that works, but
That's just creepy as hell.
Right.
It's creepy.
And it fails miserably, but that's what role models do. They give you shitty advice sometimes. And it is crazy because you have to kind of juggle this idea between him being this warm uncle, but they also show him as this cold killer, which is why I think it was such a good decision to have him completely silent as the Prowler until it is found out who he is, because even his character design isn't all that great, I think, in the beginning, but the more that they do just with his actions and the animation with him, it truly makes him an intimidating threat.
I do like the way he moves around. He seems very unnaturally fast, and even when he is
animalistic.
Is very animalistic. And he has that that motorcycle too that he chases Miles with at the one point in the movie. I really like that. That whole sequence was really, but that was one of the first sequences they showed, wasn't it? At the end of Venom, I think, or it was that. Maybe it was something else. I feel or it was put out there in the marketing. Hey, look at this little sequence.
I remember the one they showed in Venom was when him and Peter B. Parker meet up for the first time, and he knocks him out, and they're swinging along with that train.
Okay. I thought I saw that sequence in something, but it's awesome, and I just love the animation on his character, and coupled with the music. I think it's so cool. Any other thoughts on Prowler before we move on to the two other villains?
I thought it was really interesting is the Aaron Davis is basically the Uncle Ben for Miles, and it's able to kind of fit that role model sacrifice character without feeling like it's a rehash of the same thing we've seen over and over again.
Yeah,
Aaron is he turns out he's a villain, so Miles has that conflict. So it's not like oh, Uncle Ben was a saint, he was a father to me. No, he had his uncle Aaron, who was someone who he could trust, but then he finds out this guy was trying to kill him for the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting seeing that kind of take on the sort of the mentor character.
You're right. That is the person I guess Miles does lose in his life. But you're right. It's a bit of a refreshing take because it's not just this person was just my moral center. I could go for them for anything. He could do that with his uncle, but his uncle has his dark side. He has his he this is what he does for a living. He's an assassin. He's a murderer. But people are complicated, so yeah. That's what makes it better, in my opinion, or at least different in a way where it doesn't feel like a rehash. Refreshing, of course. Well, moving on from problems. Anyone else? Anything else they want to say about the character and Aaron Davis? Oh, keep going.
Maybe because I have not heard of the Prowler until right now today, so I don't know that was his name. But I felt like I felt like his reveal was just kind of rushed. The same with his death, and so I don't really know. Like I didn't know that he was the Prowler. So yeah, I'm not sure if if you guys also felt kind of the same, or maybe
it's it's weird because that's something cool to bring up. That's good to bring up because I and I think a lot of people here were a bunch of nerds, and we know so much about this material. It's like, yeah, of course it's the problem. We don't know that. Yeah. And it's like, hey, we can move on. But for people who don't know any of this are like, oh shit, he's the Prowler, okay. And it can feel rushed. I didn't expect, like, when I first was like, oh, they killed him and they shot him, he's dead. I didn't expect that. I was very surprised that they killed the Prowler in the movie. When I first originally saw it. But yeah, in terms of rush, I don't know. I think it's just because of how I know so much about the character already. That it didn't bother me, but I can see it bothering people who may not be or have no familiarity with him.
Yeah, maybe because you guys have like already like a knowledge or background knowledge with the Prowler. Maybe that's why you guys already kind of expected that. But I don't know anything about the Prowler, so yeah. I'm just it does kind of feel rushed as someone who has not known about the existence of the Prowler.
Sure. The movie's juggling a lot of parts, and
yeah, it does.
It definitely I think it does it well for the most part. But yeah, I can see where they do it's not always focused on the Prowler in the movie. They don't always come back to him. Most of the time, it is with Miles with these other spider people, and then I was like, and like the next character I want to talk about, who I think does get the most characterization and the most depth, I want to say, and even more than the Prowler. I think it's more focused on him. But no, it's a good point to bring up. But moving on from the Prowler and Davis, and we want to bring up anything else later on, please do so. But the next character I didn't want to talk about is Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, which I love his design. I know it's controversial, but I think it's Bill Sarowitz. I want to say is the
We have Schreiber.
Oh, no. It's Lee Schreiber who plays the character, but the artwork that they're inspired by for the design of the character is by this artist. I think Bill. Oh, what's his name?
Bill Sienkiewicz.
Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yeah,
love it.
He did a lot of Daredevil too. He did Daredevil's best runs
and New Mutants.
Yeah,
that's what the character's inspired by. But yes, he's voiced by Lee Schreiber, and I love that Lee Schreiber gives him that thick New York accent. Like when he first comes on, you have the Peter blonde hair, blue eyed Parker asking him, it's like, how's business, Kingpin? He's like, booming. And I love it. I was like, oh yeah, we get that very thick accented New York Kingpin.
He sounds like if Tony Soprano was a Marvel villain.
Funny enough, I know that James Gandolfini had originally auditioned for the role of Kingpin in the Ben Affleck Daredevil film. Back in the day, we could have gotten a James Gandolfini Kingpin, which would have been perfect. But I love how yes, he is a crime lord. He has this criminal empire, but I love that his mission in this movie is to build this device so he can get his family back. Like that's what he wants more than anything in the world, because of what he is. And because his family saw him fighting Spider-Man, they were horrified by him, end up dying, we see in a flashback. And he spends the rest of his life, and in this film, trying to get them back. Pluck them from another reality so he can have them for himself. And, I can sympathize, and with him. But at the same time, it's like, he's a monster in this movie. This is we've had some really good Kingpin depictions the last couple of years. Vincent D'Onofrio did such a great job, and he's going to continue to do so, I imagine, when he makes his re-debut, if you will. But I just love his introduction because he kills Spider-Man in the beginning of the movie. He fucking crushes him, hits him so hard he dies, knocks the life out of him.
That scene fucked me up because I wasn't ready for it. Like
Yeah.
I didn't like realize like that it was gonna like I think I might have known that it happens, but I was like when I actually see it, the look on his face when the moment it happens, I was like, holy shit, he just fucking just killed, like, Spider-Man's dead. Like, you know, like that. Yeah,
It's shocking.
That scene was I think that's like when you kind of get like that's the filmmakers telling you like buckle up because you're not ready. You don't know what's like this is a different kind of movie,
different animated film than you've seen before.
Yeah.
And even though they don't show Spider-Man's body like just completely exploded, it's just how he does it. It's that slight turn away, and then just comes right down on him. And then when Miles like sees he's horrified and like some rubble falls, and then they all look at him and he turns away, and Kingpin just says, "Kill that guy." I just loved it. I was like, "Oh, yeah." I love Lee Schreiber's take on Kingpin. I love the design for him. He is just this fucking unit of a man with a little head. And even there's some other details too, like he has these pens. He constantly clicks all the time because he has like this constant, consistent rage. And I love that.
But even so, if I was watching it and someone pointed this on Twitter, in the flashback scene, you see he's a circle because his family rounds him out, and then once they're gone, he's out of shape.
Oh, I love it. Very nice. Very nice. Any other thoughts on Wilson Fisk Kingpin? By the way, also I just want to say it makes me all the more excited to finally get Kingpin and Spider-Man interact in the MCU because it's going to happen eventually. But it's like, oh, they work so well together. I love when they bounce off each other because it's been so long. It's been so long because of the weird licensing issues with those characters. But any thoughts on Wilson Fisk Kingpin in the movie?
I like the way they use the whole even evil has loved ones trope. Like, while he is doing this for his family, it's not in a way that's going to make us root for him because his mission is so hopeless. Like, no matter what he would have done, he would have come out as the bad guy because he'd be taking these people from their reality. And also, they were going to be horrified with him no matter what because it shows that when the other variants see what he's doing.
That's a good point. And he's truly lost everything. But you're right, his whole plan was flawed from the beginning, from its inception. So true. Any other thoughts on Wilson Fisk Kingpin?
I just like how you have Spider-Man just begging him, like, don't do this. He's like, nah, I'm just gonna kill you and keep doing what I'm doing.
Already gotten this far. That can stop me now.
It's evil just as an unstoppable force. And you could see it even when he's going against Miles, when it's obvious that his plans, they don't work, and he just keeps fighting because that's what he knows how to do.
Yeah.
I appreciated that they made him into a nuanced villain. You know, that he does have aspects to him that make him like fascinating and not quite sympathetic, but he has an honest motivation.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. You're right. Yeah, you understand his motivation. It's like, okay, I get it. Even though you're doing it in the worst way possible.
Yeah.
To try to help yourself.
I was going to say, I never understood. I mean, I understand his motivation, but what was the end game? Like, it's your family from a different dimension, so they don't even know him. And so was he just going to torture them into loving him, which would be even darker and possible?
Probably. Yeah, that's most like it would have happened. I think he was just like, I just want to get him. I don't know what comes after that. I don't fucking know. I'll make him love me.
Well, the narcissism inherent within every villain is such that, like, of course they would be happy to see me. You know, of course they will fit right into like this menagerie that I'm going to build and collect. And if I can't, like, you know, and if this one doesn't work out, I can always just go get another pair. You know, like they're almost like fungible dolls in a dollhouse for him.
It's like
'Cause,
Rick
like,
and
he did,
Morty a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it is like Rick and Morty. You're right. Let's go to another reality. That's fine. Whatever. What's one reality over the other one? True. Nah, that's really dark when you think about it. Yeah. And again, it just shows how flawed his idea originally was. His plan is, even if it's just based in his own sadness and tragedy. Yeah, I like that a lot.
It's really because it's like not the first time we've seen this type of Kingpin wanting to be loved, wanting to feel the love. So like, I like how he really wants to go through like, oh yeah, let's just go to a different, universe. But you kind of messing up everything right now, dude.
Sure. I guess that's always been really, when you think about it, been part of Kingpin's whole thing, is that he accumulates all this power, but he wants more, but he wants to be loved. I mean, we see that in D'Onofrio's Kingpin with his abusive childhood, and then when he finds Vanessa and he really loves this woman, we also see that we see it in the comics. That's in the comics when it's trying to find a love, trying to maintain his relationship with his wife or his son Richard, and that falls apart in all sorts of various ways. Depending on what iteration you're watching, it falls apart because of who he is, because of what he can't help himself. He's indulging in his appetites, and it hurts the people that are closest to him. But he's too arrogant and ignorant to realize that it's him that's wrong, not Spider-Man, not Daredevil. It's you, dude. You're the reason why this all keeps falling apart.
Yeah, I also do love Liev Schreiber's like version of Kingpin, to the point where I do want to see more of him outside of the Spider-Verse. Like, take the Kingpin's like voice to like, I say, a different like Spider-Man or a different like Daredevil cartoon, if there ever is one in the future.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool. I would love that. Can you imagine a Daredevil movie in this style? That would be awesome. They had bring him as Kingpin again. I'd love that.
My body is ready.
Any other thoughts on Kingpin before we move on to our final villain?
He kind of reminds me of Doctor Strange from What If, where he's just trying to resurrect his whole family in expense of the whole safety of the whole universe, I guess.
Yeah, selfishness. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I understand him and why he wants to do that and why he was the way he was, I guess.
Yeah, he doesn't. It's very comparable. It's like, yeah, his whole thing is based in tragedy and the loss of something, but he's willing to risk it all and all of us to achieve that goal. He's like, I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter to me. I need this. So yeah, good point. Very similar to the Doctor Strange most recently, What If. Well, moving on from Kingpin, Prowler, did want to touch on one final villain and character. And of course, if there's anyone else you want to bring up at the end, please do so, because there's a lot of people in this movie. There's Aunt May, who I think is great in the film. I love how she is very well aware of who Peter is and that he is Spider-Man and all that, and how she's a fucking tech expert too, which I think is really neat. There's so many other characters in here, but I do also want to talk about Doc Ock, or Liv, as her friends call her. I thought that was such a great little reveal, because I didn't expect it at first. I was like, wait a minute, because we see her initially early on the film during when Miles went to school, and that's where he met Gwen, and her video is playing in the background, and she's this total. She feels like several people I've met across my life, that college professor who is kind of a hippie, and she has the crazy hair and all these colors and like yarn and shit like weaved in it. I'm like, wow, what? I was like, okay, that's so cool. And then you find out that she's not only just this kind of professor-esque, scientist, but she's the Doc Ock. She's the Dr. Octopus of this reality. So that did surprise me. I did not expect that. I didn't read the casting list or even know that Dr. Octopus was going to be in this movie. And Catherine Hahn just absolutely kills it in the role. There's that kind of that confidence, but also that madness to her character. Like even how when she initially captures Peter B. Parker and saying like, I'm gonna enjoy every moment of you falling apart. He goes, what? What are you talking about? I really loved it. I mean, she doesn't get as much depth as someone like Prowler or even Kingpin, but when she's on, when she's there, I think you're always consistently entertained. So I really liked this version of Doc Ock. Any other thoughts on Liv or Doc Ock as a character.
Version. Oh, sorry. uh, her version of her like Doc Ock threw me off guard when like as you said, when we first saw her, we just didn't know. We just thought it was just a throwaway character, and then it's like, oh snap, that's awesome! Like
Mhm.
I love Catherine Hahn's work as Doc Ock in this movie, and like she kills it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fully agree.
I absolutely there's that scene where Peter was it the like the schlubby Peter Parker.
Yeah, Peter B. Parker.
Peter B. Parker is going through the plan, and Miles reminds her, he's like, I'm gonna sneak up on him. He's like, the doctor's a her. He's like, I'm going to examine my internal biases, and I'm gonna sneak up on her. And it's like I almost like when I'm listening to Juicy talk about like what like when you realize that they gender bent the character and flipped it, and it works so well. It's so good, and it's such a great reveal that you like because I wasn't expecting her to be. It's like I remember and then when I saw it multiple times, I went back. I was like, oh shit, she's the one in the high school video.
Yes,
And
yes.
she's like, and then you realize, that like when like all the little like changes and modifications and like the riffs on her, and I think like in some ways the filmmakers are speaking to the audience, like examine your internal biases of what you expect, and like I like or that like her arms are like inflated.
Yeah,
They're like pneumatic, like they're really
weird design.
Yeah, like it's almost, but it's like if Doc Ock was like concerned about like
The environment.
sustainable materials, and
That's
like
true.
sustainable design, of course she would use like pneumatic arms instead of like using conflict minerals to develop like robotic arms and shit like that. Like and she was funny. Like she was really like she was always fun every time she was on screen, and I forgot that it was Catherine Hahn was the voice. And now it's like when I think about Catherine Hahn's other performance, especially in WandaVision, and I'm like, oh, obviously she would smash this role. But I actually, as much as I like Wilson Fisk and Kingpin, that her Doc Ock was my favorite villain of the film.
Nice. No, that's great. Any other thoughts on Liv Doc Ock from anyone else?
I think she's probably one of my favorite Spider-Man villains ever at this point. Like, I like how she became so threatening so quickly. Like you said before, Chris, she made that switch so seamlessly. And I think we have enough of her, like that whole getting hit by a truck thing. I don't know. I think she'll be back, and I think she and Aunt May know each other. I think there's been some speculation online about that, about the way she calls her Liv.
That's true. Well, it's like people were shipping them. I remember when the movie came out, people were doing Rule 34 artwork. But no, I think that'd be fun. I think they do. They clearly indicate that they know each other. Calls her Liv, so they have a friendship. That'd be cool. Like to explore, like what? Because you think about it, like we could really go into like detail of this Spider-Man's world, the initial Spider-Man of this world, where maybe that's how he initially met Liv, was through Aunt May because they're friends, or maybe that's her girlfriend, but she's also a supervillain. I mean, there could be all sorts of little things that you can go into eventually, but I'm with you too, Casfe, because I don't want, because is she dead? Did they just hit her with a truck and that's it? Like, I hope they bring back some of these characters because people reacted so positively to them. And so it's like, hey, we didn't see you die. We didn't see the body. That means you could potentially be alive. Aaron, he dead. And we know that Aaron Davis the Prowler is dead. Maybe they can do a new iteration of him, another universe or something, sure. But I do hope they bring back Catherine Hahn as Ock because she nails it. She nails it. And it's one of those things.
I just realized there's actually some legitimacy to the concept of like, the shipping between Liv and May, because it was a big thing. If you remember in the comics, it was a big thing that Dr. Octopus tried to marry Aunt May at least a few times.
Yes.
So maybe the same thing happened in
I was
this
about to say.
universe.
It's the same thing, man. It happened as well. There you go. Makes so much sense. Oh, I totally forgot about that. Yeah. All right. So clearly they were dating. And Peter's like, Aunt May, don't. She's a villain. That's what happened. And that's why Ock hates Peter Parker or Spider-Man, because you ruined my relationship with my girlfriend, Aunt May.
Oh, it's
That
perfect.
makes sense. There you go.
What a ship.
That'll be good. That'd be awesome. I think that'd be so funny if they did that. But any other thoughts on Doc Ock live in the movie?
I have one small thing. So in
Please.
the 90s, there was a female Doc Ock. People don't remember because she came out in the horrible, horrible Clone Saga.
Oh,
She had like
shit.
pink hair. I think she's come back now because of the Catherine Hahn version, and they've done
it's funny.
a whole female version of the Sinister
New
Six.
version. Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. I'll say this. They got some, like, there's a female Scorpion, there's a female Electro, who I think is pretty cool.
Isn't there like? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, what were we gonna ask, Chris?
I was gonna ask you because isn't the 2099 Doc Ock female? Or am I?
That was in the Shattered Dimensions game. That one is
Okay.
female.
Okay, I thought
But I
so.
don't know if the main. I think that one is a robot in 2099
All right.
or something. Maybe he's an Atlantean. It's one of those two. It's comics. They're dumb.
Yes, that's very true.
But
were you
yeah,
gonna say?
I was very caught because you noticed her in the beginning, but just before she comes on scene, you see a Doc Ock arm. Just before,
That's
and
right.
I'm like, hey, it's a Doc Ock arm. I wonder if he's gonna be. And then she showed up, and I'm like, oh, what? Because I was surprised too, because I think they left her out of the marketing or never showed her face.
They did not. If she was, they didn't show her in Ock gear or anything like that. You know. So I think you're right. That was a surprise.
I don't think they did.
They showed Kingpin, and I think they showed Prowler, and maybe some of the other villains as well, but not her. So that was a big. It's funny. Ock's been a big surprise in like two different things recently. No one knew that he was going to be in the Spider-Man 2018 game. Like that was kept out of all. I think it maybe leaked like a couple of days beforehand, but like no one knew that Otto Octavius was in the game. He was going to be your mentor, and that he would eventually become Doc Ock in that game, and also in this movie. It's cool. That's happened twice with Ock now. But yeah, no, great points brought by everybody in regards to all three villains, and there's more villains, of course, in the movie. There's tombstones in the movie. They have a robot Scorpion. They have so many characters, and I want to take a moment to talk about all of them. But you know, I think this is officially the longest discourse we've ever had, and I want to keep you guys here too late because I'm also going to be doing my Class in the Glass cast tonight as well. But I did want to come to this part of the show and just go down the line of everybody, asking them what their favorite moment or favorite scene was in the movie. I'll just go ahead and start, and I'll just say I really liked. I mean, I think it'd be a lot of people's favorite moment, but the "What's Up, Danger" scene when he finally embraces his role as Spider-Man, swinging across that city, the use of color, the music, all that. I also like how Miles is not the best at web swinging, so unlike the other spider people, and so he does a lot of parkour, or he's still getting used to it. So him running across the buildings and bouncing between things, I kind of like that. He's still struggling figuring that out, but he has that confidence now. That scene is amazing, and the final shoulder touch with Kingpin, hey, and just using his electrical abilities on him. Those are probably my two favorites in the movie. But we'll go ahead. We'll start we started with Deadpool. Let's go ahead and start with Newsy Ducky. Christina, we'll start with you. Your favorite moment or scene in the movie?
Well, let me just try to jog my memory.
Oh, it's okay. If you need time, I can move on to someone else. If that's fine. You need to take a second.
Oh no, it's okay. I would say those scenes with Stan Lee. I like those little moments. I think when he was in that comic shop trying to buy a costume, and I think he was he was trying to say I think it was something about not the mask or the costume not fitting correctly or something like that.
It all fits eventually.
Yeah, I actually like that, and yeah, it's a nice little touch on just how at first how all these characters they feel that they don't fit into that role, but then eventually they became that role.
Yeah.
And yeah, I actually love that very last scene of the movie with like a small line that Stanley wrote or said or something. I forgot what it was, but I like it. Yeah, it's a nice. It's again, it's the love letter to Stanley, I would say.
Very much so. No, and in that
Yeah.
that was, I think, the cameo that was the most recent one, just when he had died. It was around that same time, very close to each other. I
Yeah.
think. I feel like, yeah, they had more of an emotional punch. I think for a lot of people, and both sequences were good. They both did very well.
Yeah.
Oh, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Oh, well, I also like that there was that recurring line that it kind of says that we get hit over and over again, but at the end we stand back up or something
Yeah.
along that line. I actually prefer that than greater power comes great responsibility bullcrap. I prefer that other line.
Oh, it's something new, which I think definitely helps.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And Xavier, how about yourself, good sir? Favorite moment, favorite scene in the film?
There's a lot of really good scenes. I think that I agree with Newsy Ducky that Stanley scene was really good because of the double meaning, and plus I think that in real life Stan probably would have done something like that. Be like, it doesn't matter. Like he would say something inspirational and then be like, too bad there's no returns on it, so whatever. But I think oh man, there's so many. I'll just go with the scene where Spider-Man dies because just like you, I was shocked that happened.
Yeah.
And plus, it was just so brutal. Like I was, I remember being in the theater and being like, "Did that really happen?" And just thinking like he's gonna, come back at some point, or maybe he's just really injured. But no, they just killed him. And so, yeah, that was a really surprising scene that I really liked. That definitely stuck with me.
Nice, very nice pick. Kazfe, what about yourself? Your favorite moment or scene in the movie?
Well, like you, I really love the "What's Up Danger" scene, but what I also love is everything leading up to it because another crucial moment is when he's tied to that chair with the spider web and it's over his mouth and everything, and that's a huge do or die moment because that's when things start to click into place. He does the electric thing, he turns himself invisible like when his friend wakes up a couple minutes after that or something. Like he starts doing all the stuff and then he goes to put the suit together, he does the graffiti type artwork. I love how his artwork is incorporated like throughout the movie. It's a consistent part of his personality, and his art style kind of spills over into this world at times. And I love the whole just how his suit turned out, how when he gets to that scene on top of that building, you get a sense that he knows who he is now.
Yeah, totally agree. Thunder Lee, what about yourself? Your favorite moment or scene in the movie?
My favorite moment has to be the post credit. Like I love the Spider-Man pointing at each other, and so like they show 2099 just show up. Was it 2099?
Yes.
Yeah, 2099 show up, and I think that was supposed to like tease the next movie, which as we saw in the trailer, he is in the new movie. I don't know what's going on with that whole like him throwing miles in that, but him just showing up and then going into like the old cartoon Spider-Man and then him having an argument with that old Spider-Man, like, you're pointing at me? No, you're pointing at me. Who's the real Spider-Man? He's the real Spider-Man. I'm like, I love it.
They did the thing. Yeah, it's a super cute moment. So I'm glad they did it, and it didn't feel unearned. It didn't feel cringy. I was like, oh no, this is actually working. It was very funny. Stefan, Duck and Henry, how about yourself, good sir? Your favorite moment in the film or scene?
I'd have to say I just have to rewind it about a couple more minutes before Kaz phase, where you have his father and Miles' father. He kind of ignores him through the beginning of the movie, but you can really see throughout the movie how much his father's affected him and made his moral compass what it is. And that moment when his father's trying to talk to him and he can't even answer, and Miles knows that his uncle, his brother is dead. And that's a heartbreaking moment. And that's what I think that's kind of where everything clicked into place for him, and like it reminded him less of what he'd lost, but also his dad being there and what he still has.
Good pick. Very good pick. Chris Ayers, what about yourself, good sir? Favorite scene or favorite moment?
There's a lot of amazing moments in this one. One that really stood out to me, it was because it made me cry. There were a couple scenes in this movie that made me cry. Like, for Spider-Man movies, it's very easy to like kind of tug at my heartstrings. The only one movie that doesn't do that for me is Amazing Spider-Man 2. Yeah, I cried a few times in this one. The Stan Lee cameo was one. Uncle Aaron's death was another. But the big one for me, and I think this is gonna be. I think this is gonna be kind of a surprise pick, but it's when Peter B. Parker meets back up with Aunt May. I found that scene really, really it moved me. Like her reaction, like she barely even says anything. All she has to do is just gasp, and just like like a gallon of emotion comes out of it. And they're talking to each other, and she's at like, "How are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm so tired." And it's like, yeah, like that. It really hit home for me how that's like my favorite dynamic within the Spider-Man mythos is the relationship between him and Aunt May. Like, yeah, that relationship, when they get it right, I don't think they've gotten it wrong so far. Like I've loved all the movie versions. Like I love the more grandmother version from the Raimi movies. I really like Sally Field as the more stern mom in the Andrew Garfield movies, and I like Marissa Tomei's like fun big sister version in the MCU movies. But yeah, like just that scene, the way it's staged, the voice acting, the way they deliver it, it hit me in a way that I really didn't expect and really moved me.
Very good pick. Austin, yourself, good sir. Your favorite moment or scene?
I have two. They're kind of one is probably the chase on the subway. Just rewatching it today and just like how the Prowler moves. The second one is in the beginning of the Perfect Spider-Man doing the Spider-Man 3 dance, and that just the fact that they actually made that joke in this movie, and they recognized how bad it was.
Yes.
Toby does it, and just kind of I think that's the point of the movie. I'm like, okay, this is going to be an amazing movie after I saw that. But also, it did make me realize there is one other critique I have. They didn't put a Mr. Dickovich cameo in this. Like, we need somebody screaming at Peter for rent.
That gets points off. I agree. I'm right there with you. No, he might show up in No Way Home. He might be there. He might be the sixth member of the villains that came back. I'm hoping. I'm really hoping. But them whole mocking that just infamous moment from the Raimi trilogy. I was like, okay, I'm glad you're finally owning up. All right, it wasn't good. We know. All right, there you go. All right, we can move on. It's like, okay, we can move on now. It's fine. Great pick. Ace Rock, yourself, good. So your favorite scene, favorite moment.
So I think everyone has I've been thinking about, because it's like, I think, everyone goes, I'm like, shit, that was what I was gonna pick.
Yeah.
Fuck, I was gonna pick that one, or damn it, I was gonna pick that one. But so I think one of my favorite moments of the film, and it goes back to the scene where they're breaking into the lab, and Peter B. Parker is like, I'm gonna grab the data, I'm gonna grab the computer or disk or whatever, I'm gonna sneak out, and I'm gonna grab a bagel, and I'm going to swing my way out. And he actually grabs a bagel, and he loses it. And when he throws it over his shoulder, and it hits someone in the head.
Yeah.
And if you pause, it has like action lines, but the action lines are bagel.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
It just says bagel. And I was like, that like is one of the things that's like a little choice that like 99% of the people who watch this film like, I mean, if you go back and you watch it and you see it, you're like, oh shit. That little thing like there is to me like what makes like there was so much love and care put into the film. But then afterwards when they're swinging through the trees and Peter B. Parker is like he's like, yeah, you're getting it, you kid. Like, you know, like you're the hot-headed student, and me, I'm the wise master, and then they just get like, you know, things go to shit. But it was kind of like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes I have the same sort of like vibe with Caillou. As like we're going through life doing stuff.
It's cute.
And I'm like I'm fucking doing it.
Yeah.
I'm being a dad. You know, and so that scene like kind of hit me in a way that I'll always remember it fondly. But that little moment where just says bagel on top of the guy's head, it cracked me up.
It's just these small little subtle details that they actually took the time to also just write that in there.
Yeah,
or whatever
I think
else
that it really exemplifies why this film is so good on every level, because someone thought to go back and put that thing in there, even though it's like literally a frame.
Yeah, just shows dedication and love. Even if most people don't see it, like they know that it's there, and people that do catch it, and it's like, oh, it's a little treat, a little treasure for them. So it's really cool. So totally, yeah, great pick, very good pick. And rounding it out, Deadpool, good sir, thank you for being so patient. Your favorite scene and/or moment in the movie?
I have two. The first one is Officer Davis taking Miles to school.
Oh yeah, very very adorable.
Yeah, and it's like because he's kind of embarrassing Miles a little bit. And then he says to Miles, "I love you." Miles leaves without saying it, so he gets on the loudspeaker, says, "You got to say it back."
Mm-hmm.
And he won't leave until he says it. And I think that's it's such a wholesome moment, and it's at the same time, I think it's a really good it's a good positive masculine character moment for Jefferson Davis.
Yeah,
because he's a masculine character, a black dad who's not afraid to show his emotions for his son. Because and which some people have already mentioned later on when he comes to talk to Miles about the death of his uncle. There's another one of those emotional moments where no one's being stoic about it. Like it's like they're willing to show emotion, which I always thought is very wholesome for like a father-son relationship in a movie.
Yeah, great pick. Well, and what was your other pick then?
My other pick is the goodbye scene where all the different members are leaving.
Yeah.
And then Kingpin shows up, so Peter B. Parker and Miles, they're about to face off against him, and Peter's about to make the sacrifice, and Miles kind of like, yeah, no, you're not, and about to throw him in there, and Peter B. Parker's like, what if I screw up again? And Miles like, you won't, because it's a leap of faith.
Using his own words against him.
Yeah, not bad, kid.
It's it's a great moment. It's a great moment. Really, just kind of it is the perfect way to showcase how far their friendship and camaraderie has come. So yeah, it's a beautiful moment. But with that, everyone, thank you. Seriously, thank you everyone for sharing your moments and your thoughts on all of these characters and these scenes and the aspects of this film. This is definitely, I know it's the longest discourse of all time. We had a lot of people here, but it was awesome. This was an awesome conversation. I'm gonna try to post this before the start of tonight's class in the glass, which I'll probably have to push back a little bit, but that'll be fine. Be no problem whatsoever. But thank you guys for being a part of it. Thank you, Deadpool. Thank you, Ace Rock. Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Chris Ayers. Thank you, Duncan Henry Stefan. Thank you, Thunder Lee. Thank you, Kazfe. Thank you, M. Xavier. And thank you, Newsy Ducky. Christina, thank you so much for being a part of this. I hope those who are listening enjoyed Discourse episode 10, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And we'll see you at the next one. Bye. 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 Bye.
Bye.
Yay, we did it. Excellent.